Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. People in Marvel. I become apprentice mage in Kamar Taj at the beginning. Chapter 41. The Red Ring of Ragador is the strongest form. Kamar Taj's defensive magic is already fierce and strong. Although each person's practice and the magic energy in the body are different, the defense ability is different. But without using magic, ordinary people cannot break it. Even if it is only the ordinary form cast by the official mage level, the Ring of Gegadal pulled is already very strong. Even ordinary super-powered people don't have to be broken. What's more, it was the red form cast by an archmage like Wong who had been practicing for more than 10 years. Zhang Yang actually smashed it directly with one punch. And I really didn't feel the magic breath. And that means Zhang Yang was shattered with his own strength. This is special. A bit perverted, right? Realizing this problem, how could Mordo and Cassius and Koichi not be shocked? Yesterday I couldn't even throw a coin with a wave of ostentation, and today I broke the King's Ring of Gegadal with my bare hands. Just one night. I'm afraid he didn't take some medicine. So fierce all of a sudden. Zhang Yang, this guy, it's so abnormal, right? Even Wong, who fought against Zhang Yang, didn't understand what was going on. You know, using the Ring of Gegadal was originally for blocking. The purpose of the block is to fear injuries on both sides. After all, it's just a simple assessment, and there's no need to make you die. Can this punch be flaunted? Wong felt that if he really hit himself, he would die. I'm sorry, Wong, I'll restrain myself. Just when Wong was still confused, Zhang Yang suddenly said. After all, it was the first time to use power, and I couldn't control it. Zhang Yang was also a little embarrassed. Oh, it's okay, Wong was stunned and couldn't help but say. His brain didn't seem to react much. His mind was full of scenes where the Ring of Gegadal on his right-hand side was shattered by Zhang Yang. So I continue. Hearing Wong say this, Zhang Yang replied very bluntly. This time, Wong reacted. You still restrain yourself. After all, it's just an assessment. Until the point is reached, I don't want anyone to get hurt. All right, Wong spoke a little tactfully. To put it simply, Wong still wants to see the sun tomorrow. Zhang Yang, this power, suddenly strong, is a little terrifying. The terrifying king felt that he couldn't hold it a little. Good. Zhang Yang nodded. The words fell, and attacked the king. It seems that Wong woke up Zhang Yang with a word. This time, Wang Neng clearly felt that Zhang Yang even looked different in his eyes. Confident and determined. From the open eyes, Wong could only see two words, serious. Zhang Yang's attack again also pulled back the thoughts of the somewhat confused Ji Yuyi, Mordo, Cassius, and Berkeley. His gaze looked at Zhang Yang again. This time, Zhang Yang and Wong have already fought. The two fists and feet face each other, one attack and one defense, fighting back and forth. If it weren't for yesterday, Mordo, they had seen Zhang Yang and really didn't know much about martial arts. Even Wang Zhao's military body fist can feel that it is suitable for close combat, and at this moment, Modu and his group really do not believe that Zhang Yang is a novice who has learned martial arts. Wait, Zhang Yang doesn't seem to be using a military body fist. At this moment, the sharp-eyed Cassius couldn't help but say. Cassius's words made both Mordo and Berkeley also notice. What Zhang Yang used no longer seems to be a military body fist, but Sanda. Sanda. When did he learn Sanda? Berkeley was stunned and couldn't help but mutter. Didn't Wong only teach Zhang Yang military body boxing yesterday? Why did Zhang Yang change his military body punch to Sanda halfway? Did Zhang Yang learn Sanda before? Looking at the Sanda that Zhang Yang suddenly used, Mordo couldn't help asking. Absolutely nothing. At this time, Berkeley spoke. Just before the New York War, Wong fought with the Avengers group. I asked them to help. Zhang Yang is still saying that he can't fight, so he used the fear magic we made up. Berkeley deliberately lowered his voice when he said this, as if he was afraid that Zhang Yang would hear it. It's just that Berkeley's words are a little unbelievable. Zhang Yang's Sanda, how to look at it, it doesn't look like he just learned although he is not particularly proficient, he can reach the level of master, but at least he has to learn for 1 or 2 years to play the level. If Zhang Yang hadn't learned Sanda, how could he be at this level? Mordo looked at Berkeley with a cold face, his face full of doubts. Berkeley was a little confused. What he said is the truth. Berkeley was thinking about how to explain it to Mordo. At this moment, Cassius was once again a little surprised. Isn't this Muay Thai? Mordo. Berkeley. What Muay Thai? Just didn't you say it was Sonda? Berkeley and Mordo couldn't help but think, and when they looked at the stage again, their flamboyant postures and movements changed. Isn't that shaky little broken step in the position of the two fists Muay Thai? Mordo. Are you sure Zhang Yang hasn't learned Muay Thai? Berkeley wanted to cry without tears. Senior brother Mordo. I really can't fight before Zhang Yang. If he had learned, he wouldn't have refused to fight in close combat when aliens invaded, right? I swear, senior brother, Berkeley said weakly. Heaven forbid, he said the truth. Perhaps, Zhang Yang was enlightened by that set of military body boxing to Sonda and Muay Thai. Berkeley quickly explained that, to be honest, this is not impossible. Moreover, this possibility is quite large. Of course, it's just Berkeley who thinks it's possible. And Mordo and Cassius too. That's not the way I think at all. He always felt as if his IQ had been crushed. Just that set of military body boxing, can you understand Sonda and Muay Thai? No, who are you bluffing? How, do you think we don't know Sonda or Muay Thai? Never studied mixed martial arts at all. With this understanding, he must not go against the sky. Berkeley, are you taking us for fools? Muay Thai and Sonda, the difference is 108,000 meters. Mordo was a little angry. This anger frightened Berkeley, and Berkeley hurriedly said, Senior brother, it's really not the flamboyant understanding when it is really so high. I had taught them the spell of magic light before, and Zhang Yang went back and thought about it for one night, and I learned more than 300 kinds of sharp weapon magic, and all of them were the little magic of Kamar Taj. In Berkeley's heart, in terms of understanding and talent, Kamar Taj bragged to call the first and no one dared to call the second. Everyone else says that learning is the same, at most to draw inferences. Zhang Yang is learning, and it is possible to draw an inference from 300. That's awesome. Listening to Berkeley's words, Mordo couldn't help but ask, you mean, you only taught them magic light, and Zhang Yang learned other sharp weapon magic? Berkeley nodded. Well, not likely. Mordo had a big question mark on his face at the moment. At the same time, Cassius spoke again. This is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. For a while, Mordo and Berkeley's eyes were attracted again. It turned out to be really Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This will, Mordo is also confused. Senior brother, Zhang Yang should not have learned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This time, without waiting for Mordo to ask, Berkeley spoke. However, this will, Mordo really doesn't want to ask. Because, Mordo wanted to see it at this time. What else will Zhang Yang have? Not only Mordo, Cassius and Koichi also wanted to see it. The arena fell silent at this moment. There were no more whispers, and all that remained in the fighting arena was the sound of fists and feet clashing. This is karate, tai chi, jeet kune do, Wing Chun, sambo. Originally, everyone in the fighting arena felt that Wang was too bullying to fight a novice martial artist who had only learned military body boxing as a martial arts master. But now, nobody thinks so anymore. This Zhang Yang has changed from a military body punch to a mixed martial arts. Just now that they saw it, Zhang Yang had already used more than 30 different fighting techniques from nearly 10 countries. And he perfectly blends martial arts such as judo and karate. There are almost no flaws in the application. Abruptly beat Wang Yi from an attacker to a defender. This good guy. Mordo and his group were stunned. At this moment, Lien Mordu didn't know why, and suddenly gave birth to a feeling that he couldn't help but feel. He really believed that Zhang Yang might be able to cite 300. Otherwise, who has nothing to learn so many martial arts? They don't really want to be martial arts masters. They're just mages. Mordo and Cassius were confused at this time. After all, for the first time, they had seen the super talent and understanding of the open. Some couldn't believe it, and some were shocked and skeptical. But the problem is that in the fighting arena, there are more than just the three of them. And Wang. At this time, Wang himself was not only confused, but also very depressed. To be honest, to say that Zhang Yang's fighting skills are stronger than Wang, not necessarily. After all, Wang has also fought in close combat for so many years, and his proficiency and understanding of the fighting techniques between countries are much stronger than Zhang Yang. Learn not only about these fighting techniques, but also about how to dismantle various moves. Fighting this thing. Proficiency and understanding are important, but neither is the most critical. The key point is physique. Why did Wang start defending? It was because Wang discovered one thing, the flamboyant physique. To be precise, the physical fitness seems to be much stronger than him. Zhang Yang's move, punch and kick. Wang even felt that it was not a normal person's strength that could be resisted. Especially his speed and power. That quick move is like the king's lost youth. If it weren't for the fact that the king had been defending with the ring of Gegadal, I was afraid that the king would have raised the white flag and surrendered long ago. The most important thing is, this is still the power after Zhang Yang said that he restrained. No, what did Zhang Yang understand in one night? I'm afraid that I didn't become a Buddha in one night. Can Zhang Yang's strength, speed, and skills in all aspects of his body be so strong that Wang Du can't control it? Wang now feels like he can cry out in pain every time he is attacked. The most terrifying thing was that the fist he hit Zhang Yang's body seemed to be tickling, and Zhang Yang didn't react yet. If Zhang Yang didn't react, forget it. His own hand hurts. Think about it, Wang also feels that he is too straightforward. You really don't need magic energy to resist. Relying on his own hard strength to attack Zhang Yang, the feeling is like hitting a steel plate. The flesh hurts. Wang always felt that if he continued to fight, he would soon be unable to hold on. Wang is really very unwilling to admit that the reason why he wants to number is because his physical fitness is not as good as ostentatious. This whole thing, it seems that Wang is now weak in body and kidney, and the fists he punches out have no strength. It's really infuriating, although Zhang Yang is much younger than Wang. But looking at Zhang Yang's small body, it doesn't look like a person who can play this power. What went wrong? The more Wang thought about it, the less concentrated his mind became, and the speed of receiving Zhang Yang's moves began to slow down. Unintentionally, Wang inexplicably cleverly beat Zhang Yang no less than 5 moves. He almost vomited blood. It hurts. Wang now understands what kind of competition fighting. Fighting with Zhang Yang, he is simply being beaten. Whether Zhang Yang felt the pain, King did not know, but the king was really in pain, and the whole person seemed to have been stabbed by thousands of knives. Whether Zhang Yang hit him or he hit Zhang Yang, it was he who was injured. No, in exchange for your fist and iron, do you hurt? Of course, pain is not the point is that Wang still has to endure. You know, Ji Yuyi, Mordo, Cassius, and Berkeley are there. So many pairs of eyes looked at Wang. As a melee mage with rich combat experience, if he was called, wow, by Zhang Yang, he would simply hide in the library for the rest of his life. It can't be revealed, so it can only be hidden. Wang is now bitter and can't say ah. After being beaten, he also put on a, "It's okay, you come again," expression on his face. Wang didn't understand why he was fighting with Zhang Yang, and he deliberately added a sentence that no other magic can be used. This is simply forcibly guilt for yourself. Wang thought unhesitantly. In the process of thinking, Wang was not less attacked by Zhang Yang. To be honest, if it weren't for the fact that Wang's melee combat experience was much better than Zhang Yang, I was afraid that with Zhang Yang's physique, he would be able to get himself within 2 or 3 moves. Fortunately, Zhang Yang only went back and thought about it for 1 night. This requires 1 or 2 more nights, and it is estimated that Wang is not an opponent at all now. After more than a dozen moves with Zhang Yang, Wang felt that it was time to end the battle as soon as possible. Too passive. A faint sigh came from the fighting ring. This sigh came from Cassius's mouth. Looking at the king who was constantly defending but not attacking, Cassius couldn't help muttering, "The king is a little powerful in this water." From Cassius' point of view, although he was shocked by the changes in Zhang Yang's one night, and Zhang Yang's sudden understanding of various martial arts, the problem was not better than Wang in terms of Zhang Yang's comprehensive fighting skills. In the end, it seems a little rusty, and there are many loopholes. You know, Wang's fighting skills are above Cassius. It can be ranked first in the whole Kamar Taj. Cassius thought that the king of flaws that he could see would not be invisible. But Wang never attacked, but turned to defense. What is this, not a release of water? It's just that Cassius didn't fight Zhang Yang, and he didn't understand Wang's current difficulties at all. I don't know that the point of Wang's difficulty is that Wang does not dare to make a move at all now. From Cassius' point of view, I only think that Wang is releasing water. Although it was a soft sigh, it also attracted Mordo's attention. In fact, Mordo feels this way too. But Mordo is more subtle than Cassius's observation. He knew that the power of flamboyance should be strong. After all, before, Zhang Yang broke the ring of Ragdoll with his bare hands. But the power behind Zhang Yang has obviously converged a lot. Wang also blocked Zhang Yang's attacks several times with the ring of Ragdoll. Zhang Yang's actual combat experience and proficiency in martial arts are obviously not as good as Wang's. The king can give Zhang Yang a fatal blow when the ring of Ragdoll fends off Zhang Yang's attack, and the victory is determined with one move. But the king did not. This is not naked release of water. Seeing this, Mordo couldn't help frowning. Water, is it okay? Especially when Supreme Mage Ji Yuyi is here, you dare to release water in a bright way. Mordo calmed his face, shook his head, and walked in front of Ji Yuyi in 3 or 2 steps. First salute, then tentatively ready to speak, too. As soon as the first word came out, it was interrupted by Furuchi, look. Simple and clear one word. To put it bluntly, Ji Yuyi just didn't want to talk to Mordo. She wants to watch the fight now. Mordo nodded and shut up in amusement, and at the same time, an exclamation suddenly sounded in his ears, Tai Chi. Wang, is this going to be serious? Tai Chi. Mordo quickly looked at the fighting arena. At this moment, the king on the stage is using the oriental martial art, Tai Chi. Wang originally had oriental blood in his body. After Wang has practiced so many martial arts in so many countries, Wang once said that he liked Tai Chi the most. To overcome rigidity with softness, the most suitable is to attack a player of Zhang Yang's power type. Wang's Tai Chi is not a flower rack. It is one of the most powerful martial arts that can be fought in real combat, and it has added some improvements of its own. At this time, it seems that Wang finally did not plan to release the water and was ready to fight seriously. This made Mordo and his audience couldn't help but become serious. Wang uses Taiji, Zhang Yang will definitely lose. Berkeley couldn't help but mutter. Wang's Taiji has once beaten down Modu, who is recognized as the strongest master brother in close combat, except for Ji Yuyi. When the words fell, Wang and Zhang Yang in the fighting ring had already fought. Zhang Yang's punches are still so fierce and brave, with the unique blood of young people. Although it is strong, it does not have much skill. And Wang's side is obviously skill-based. Freely using Tai Chi to disperse the power of Zhang Yang, while defending, while attacking. Pulled in distance with Zhang Yang and fought closely. In the end, ginger is still old and spicy. Mordo breathed a sigh of relief. In this way, the power of Zhang Yang could not be used. After all, without the space impact, no matter how strong the power of Zhang Yang is, it cannot be exerted. It is difficult to use strong power in close combat, and it is amazing to use 2 layers of strength. Mordo thought to himself, I saw that Wang punched Zhang Yang's chest after entangled with Zhang Yang for a few moves, and then another set of combo moves knocked Zhang Yang back a few steps. At this time, if Wang chases after the victory and hits Zhang Yang's throat, one move can determine the victory. I thought that Wang would make the same move as Mordo thought. However, this is the critical time. Furuchi spoke, it's okay. Ji Yuyi's words made Wang stop his hand, and Zhang Yang also stopped his hand. Mordo, Cassius, and Berkeley on the side couldn't help but be stunned. Why, stopped? Isn't Wang obviously about to win? Just when the 3 were stunned, Ji Yuyi's words made the 3 instantly dumbfounded. Very happy, you join the official mage. This, Ji Yuyi means, accept the flamboyance. But didn't the king say that he had to win to become an official mage? Just like that, Zhang Yang clearly wants to lose. Supreme Mage, this is too biased, right? Berkeley is fine. After all, in Berkeley's heart, Zhang Yang has long been an archmage-level character. But, Mordo and Cassius were a little dissatisfied in their hearts. Hearing Ji Yuyi say this, Mordo saluted Ji Yuyi Sheng, and then said anxiously, Supreme Venerable, Zhang Yang seems to have not won the king yet. In the end, when he was talking to Ji Yuyi, Mordo still had some sense of proportions in his heart. However, if there is something unfair, Mordo does not want to avoid it. Who do you think will win just now? Listening to Mordo's words, Ji Yuyi asked while fanning the small fan. She had a bit of a smile on her face. For some reason, Mordo always had a feeling that Ji Yuyi was in a good mood. I think that Wang won. Just now, Wang can completely raise his hand, contain Zhang Yang's neck, and subdue the enemy with one move. Mordo said seriously. What he said is really good. On the surface, there is nothing wrong. Berkeley and Cassius agree. Similarly, Furuichi did not deny Mordo's words, it is true. Since Wang won, why can Zhang Yang still become an official mage? Mordo didn't understand. Mordo, many things, you have to learn to see the essence through phenomena. Just like many things, people only like to look at the superficial phenomenon but ignore the substance. Ji Yuyi did not directly give Mordo an explanation, but said something meaningful to Mordo lightly. Ji Yuyi spoke, always like this. It sounds inscrutable and elusive. What does substance mean? Isn't the essence that Zhang Yang has already lost? Mordo glanced at Wang and then at Ji Yuyi, and suddenly he didn't understand. Ji Yuyi did not take the king again, but went directly to Zhang Yang. Supreme Venerable. Zhang Yang saluted Ji Yuyi Xing. What did you realize from the military body fist that Wang taught you yesterday? Ji Yuyi asked Zhang Yang, with a smile on his face, very kind. Ji Yuyi gives people an inexplicable sense of closeness. If it was based on feelings, it would be absolutely impossible to link her to the supreme mage who shook the multiverse realm. On the contrary, Ji Yuyi gives people the feeling of being a Taoist in a small Taoist temple. But Zhang Yang is very clear that often such people are more mysterious and powerful. Very classic camouflage routine. I realized some martial arts, from different countries, and then I did a night of military gymnastics last night, and I found that my body seemed to have changed, as if, full of power. Zhang Yang said to Ji Yuyi. So, what martial arts have you realized? Ji Yuyi looked at Zhang Yang and couldn't help asking. A lot, probably. There are more than 50 different martial arts, but Wang told me that the most important thing is to exercise physical fitness and strength, so I went to practice military body boxing in the middle of the night. Berkeley, Wang, Mordo, Cassius. In fact, those who can cultivate to the level of an archmage are not low in terms of magical talent. After all, the upper limit of magic practice also has a certain relationship with the talent itself. So Mordo, Wang and Cassius are not bad talents. On the contrary, talent is the better kind. But you want to say that you realized more than 50 martial arts from the military body boxing in one night. Inexistent. Can you practice the power to smash the ring of ragdoll with one punch after one night of military body punching? That's also absolutely impossible. Truth be told, Cassius and Mordo didn't believe it anyway. This kind of thing. How it sounds, it all looks like. And it's very. Of course, if it weren't for the fact that Wang and Berkeley had already seen it, they might also have felt a little. But now, there are only two words in their minds to describe Zhang Yang: pervert. Everyone is human. Why, you are so much stronger than me. Is it the wrong way I grew up? Think of this. Berkeley couldn't help but walk up to Wang's ear and whispered, Wang, can that military body fist really have such a big effect? Wang shook his head and wanted to cry without tears. Fart. When he first learned military body boxing, why was it not so useful? After training, his current physical fitness is only a little better than that of ordinary people. Hey, to say more, it is that the understanding is not as high as others. Come to the fighting ring early tomorrow, go back tonight and get a good night's sleep, don't think about anything. Hearing Zhang Yang say this, Ji Yuyi shook his fan and said to Zhang Yang. After Ji Yuyi finished speaking, everyone was stunned, even Zhang Yang. Koichi, what does this mean? Want to teach Zhang Yang magic yourself? In fact, the ancient teaching is not an earth-shattering thing. After all, it was all ancient teaching. It's just that Ji Yuyi went away later, and he didn't teach much. Mordo and Cassius did not care about Gui's teaching, but about Gui's giving up Yunyu for Zhang Yang and staying in Kamar Taj with peace of mind. If this was the case, it meant that Ji Yuyi really planned to cultivate Zhang Yang as her disciple. This made Mordo very uncomfortable. It's just that no one cares what Mordo thinks. Fengyang, aren't you ready to thank Supreme Venerable? Hearing Ji Yuyi say this, Wang was a little excited. Looking at Zhang Yang, who was still stunned, Wang hurriedly reminded. Only then did Zhang Yang react, and saluted Ji Yuyi Xing. Please ask the Supreme Mage to advise more in the future. Ji Yu nodded and said nonchalantly, "Go and rest well, you need to rest, your road will be more difficult in the future, and you will definitely carry the weight forward." Furuichi said something very charming. Zhang Yang didn't understand what this sentence meant, but too lazy to think about it. Turning around, Zhang Yang seemed to be ready to leave, but suddenly, as if he remembered something, he asked Wang, "Wang, can I go to the library to borrow books now?" Wang suddenly remembered what he had said to Zhang Yang. Random, turned his head to look at Ji Yuyi. "From tomorrow," Ji Yuyi said lightly. "Tomorrow is tomorrow. Indeed, I haven't had a good night's sleep for a long time." Zhang Yang thought to himself, and bowed to Ji Yuyi Sheng. Berkeley on the side also retreated and left. Before leaving, Zhang Yang felt a not very friendly gaze. And this gaze does not come from one person, but from two people. Mordo and Cassius. "Master, the disciple doesn't understand." As soon as Zhang Yang left, Mordo stopped Ji Yuyi, who was about to leave. "Zhang Yang's strength is inexplicable, saying that it was trained by military body boxing, isn't this explanation a bit far-fetched? Moreover, Master, Zhang Yang has obviously lost just now, why did the Master want to keep him in Kamar Taj?" Mordo had doubts in his heart, so he naturally had to ask. "Do you really think that Zhang Yang wants to lose?" At this moment, Ji Yuyi suddenly turned his head to look at Mordo. This sentence, asked Mordo, was stunned. Even Cassius on the side was stunned. The two looked at each other. The same thought arose in my heart, isn't it? Looking at the puzzled looks of the two, Wang Wei spoke. "Seriously, although I am very embarrassed, I still want to say that in fact, if the Supreme Mage does not shout to stop and fight again, the one who loses is me." Wang coughed lightly and said, a little embarrassed. "How is that possible?" Cassius exclaimed. "If you locked your throat just now, Zhang Yang would not be able to fight back at all." Wang smiled awkwardly and raised his hands embarrassedly. Soon, a pair of trembling hands appeared in front of Cassius and Mordo. Seeing this, Cassius and Mordo's pupils suddenly dilated. "This," Cassius and Mordo said a word in unison. Without waiting for the two to finish their surprise, Wang nodded and said with a sad face, "Yes, I can't make a show." Indeed, as they say, Wang lock throat can indeed be fatal in one move. But the key problem is that Wang simply does not have the strength and speed to lock his throat. Wang finally hit Zhang Yang on Zhang Yang's 3 blows in order to push away. The king who beat felt that his hand bones were about to break. If Ji Yuyi hadn't called a halt, Wang felt that he might have thrown in the towel. And the reason why Ji Yuyi called the stop must be that he didn't want Wang to admit defeat. After all, if an archmage admits defeat in front of Zhang Yang, it is indeed very faceless. Wang never thought of it. One day, the reason why he admitted defeat was because his physique was not as good as others. Unexpectedly, Zhang Yang's physique was actually trained through military body boxing in one night. If you know this earlier, Wang Zheng will not teach Zhang Yang military body boxing to death. To know, generally speaking, mages will not be particularly physically strong without using magic. It is inevitable to be better than ordinary people, but compared to those power-type superpowers and mutants, it is simply impossible to compare. To use an inappropriate analogy, this is why most mages have high damage but poor physical fitness when playing games. Because mages mainly practice magic. It is not ruled out that some mages can enhance their physique through magic, but this is extremely draining of mental power and magical energy. But Ostentatious is different. That guy really trained his physique. Without the help of magic, he has practiced to the realm that the king cannot beat, not to mention, this is only one day. This cannot be said to be unprecedented in magic, but it is definitely very few. It's like saying that when you play the game, you have the same damage mage, but the enemy you encounter is a flesh-type high damage mage. You say eggs don't hurt. Wang Gang, it's such a pain. Without using magic, even if Wang fights better than Zhang Yang, the problem is, Zhang Yang is meat, you can't lose blood when you fight. If you don't lose, you will have a ghost. This will, Mordo and Cassius understand. Wang, that military body boxing, after practicing more, can it really be practiced like Zhang Yang? Recovering from his distraction, Cassius couldn't help but ask the king. Wang, who knows? Cassius is an avid lover of abilities. He asked this just to know if the military body fist really had the effect of strengthening physical fitness. In essence, Cassius did not have any likes or dislikes about Zhongyang this person. It's just that I am curious about the inexplicable magical energy on Zhongyang's body. Is he really talented? Cassius was a little puzzled. Just like his doubts about the lifespan of the Ancient One. And Mordo is different. He doesn't like flamboyance. Everyone stands at a different angle. Mordo's dislike of Zhongyang lies in the energy in Zhongyang's body. Too strange, Mordo suspects that Zhongyang's purpose in coming to Kamar Taj is not pure. But of course, since the ancient capital has already recognized the ostentation. Zhongyang did defeat Wang, and Mordo naturally wouldn't say anything more to Zhongyang. Everything is arranged by His Holiness the Supreme. Mordo saluted and said. Ji Yuyi said calmly, Mordo, I know what is in your heart. Everyone comes to Kamar Taj with a purpose, but I hope that I can educate them. The meaning in Ji Yuyi's words is very deep. She has always given people an inscrutable feeling, as if she can see through everyone's thoughts. Mordo didn't know how to respond to this sentence, so he stopped mentioning the ostentatious thing. Mordo turned to Ji Yuyi. Supreme Venerable, a group of people in Kathmandu have been looking for us recently. Ji Yuyi smiled. It seems that you also know. Cassius said, it's Agent Natasha, the Avengers. According to my understanding, they should be investigating here because the Himalayas were cut in half. You may have heard others mention that there is a place called Kamar Taj. One mentioned the Himalayas. Wang was in a cold sweat. It's over, why did you forget about this? Yes. Ji Yuyi put the fan away and muttered, it seems that things have become troublesome. Kamar Taj and the Avengers have the same purpose, to protect the planet. It's just that Kamar Taj is to prevent creatures and magic from invading Earth from another dimension, while the Avengers protect Earth from substantial harm. When the purpose is the same, the two should be mutual aid or cooperation. But the two have rarely been connected. The biggest problem is that the Avengers are essentially managed by Nick Fury's group of agents and the top executives behind it. Fiorucci is well aware of Nick Fury's character. The world can't believe in magic, and naturally it's hard to accept. In particular, there is a powerful Kamar Taj magical sanctuary on Earth, and if Nick Fury really finds them, presumably with Nick Fury's personality, he will often trouble Fiorucci or want to control them. Ji Yuyi disliked these agents very much. I especially don't like to play any psychological tactics with these agents. She's not that idle. Therefore, Kamar Taj this place, the more hidden the better, but now the problem is that the Avengers have obviously come to the door. Mordo, Cassius, go down first. King, you stay, I have something to ask you. Fiorucci seemed to remember something and ordered. After listening, Mordo and Cassius saluted and retreated, leaving only Wang in the fighting arena. Supreme Venerable, Wang Xingli. At this moment, he was a little nervous in his heart, and he lowered his head and did not dare to speak. Are you nervous? At a glance, Ji Yuyi said without concealment, is it because the peak of the Himalayas was cut by Zhongyang? Rumble. Ji Yuyi's words were like a thunder in the ground. It shook the king's head. Sure enough, nothing could be hidden from the supreme mage. What a crime. Fortunately, there is no need to teach Zhongyang anymore. It's not ostentatious and difficult to teach, it's to teach Zhongyang to be flustered. That guy is simply a monster. You have no idea what he can realize on his own. Suddenly, it will confuse you. Yes, Wang's voice trembled. It seems that Zhongyang also caused a lot of trouble, such as he offended Odin and made a move with the Avengers. Ji Yuyi turned his back and said one by one. This is simply the final ledger after the fall. Master, in fact, this is not to blame, this is my problem with Berkeley. Wang said quickly. He defended Zhongyang, although what Zhongyang kid did sometimes was quite unexpected. But Wang was also afraid that Zhongyang would be punished for this. After all, in essence, this matter really can't be blamed. It wasn't because Wang and Berkeley didn't know that Zhongyang's understanding was good before, so they caused trouble. Who knew that guy was open? What a pervert. It seems that you like to be flamboyant. Ji Yuyi turned to look at Wang and asked, without any expression on his face. Wang nodded and said, what does Zhongyang say? He is very special. He is a man who is not arrogant and humble. In fact, I think he probably knows that his own talent is not bad. at least he knows that he is much better than the apprentices of the same batch. After all, the group of apprentices who came in with him, except for a girl named Eli, the others are still apprentices. But he's also humble, which is quite likable. He really wanted to learn more and worked hard. Wang said to Ji Yuyi. Indeed, Ji Yuyi said thoughtfully. Compared to the arrogance and conceit that Mordo and Cassius just came, he is indeed much better. Wang didn't say anything. Mordo and Cassius are not something he can easily judge. After all, both Mordo and Cassius have good talent. Cassius is the youngest archmage of Kamar Taj. Needless to say, Mordo is a master brother. The two of them have similar personalities. But the difference is that Cassius is a little more fanatical about magic and abilities than Mordo. Let's go, prepare a magic book for Zhang Yang. Mordo was thinking about it, and Ji Yuyi suddenly spoke. Mordo nodded and left the arena after Ji Yuyi. As you pass the library, you will pass by the training ground. Wang and Ji Yuyi passed by the training ground and saw Cassius teaching apprentices. It would have been a normal thing. After all, Cassius had been in charge of teaching apprentices for a long time. Now that he's back, Berkeley is largely honorably laid off. But the problem is, why does Cassius seem to be teaching apprentice gymnastic boxing? And the most important thing is that Cassius himself is also practicing very seriously in front. Over and over again, never tire of it. Wang, Koichi. No, there won't really be anyone who thinks that according to the method of teaching Zhang Yang, he can teach the disciple can teach the second Zhang Yang, right? That guy is a monster. The next day, after a good night's sleep, Zhang Yang rushed to the fighting arena early. Every time he went to the library before, Berkeley would follow Zhang Yang to ask for Anne. But now, it's clearly different. Because he was going to meet the Supreme Mage, Berkeley went to the training ground to practice. Only Zhang Yang was left to go alone. When he arrived at the fighting arena, Zhang Yang found that Wang was there, but Ji Yuyi was missing. King, Zhang Yang saluted Wang. Come in with me. Seeing Zhang Yang, Wang said, and then took Zhang Yang to a hut behind the fighting arena. Ji Yuyi sat on the ground, closed his eyes, and there were 2 cups of tea in front of her. Go ahead. Wang pointed to Ji Yuyi and said to Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang sat down opposite Ji Yuyi. Seeing this, the king left. Inside the house, only Ji Yuyi and Zhang Yang were left. This made Zhang Yang a little embarrassed for a while, and he didn't know what to say or do. After all, for Zhang Yang, Ji Yuyi is still a stranger. How long have you been here, Zhang Yang? After Wang left, Ji Yuyi opened his eyes and looked at Zhang Yang and said. It seems that Ji Yuyi is much better than Zhang Yang. There were no mood swings on the face. Probably, a week or so. Zhang Yang recalled carefully. Where are you from? Suddenly, Ji Yuyi's gaze became a little harsher, and she looked straight at Zhang Yang and said, Kamar Taj's apprentices are all favored by me when I traveled, and generally speaking, intentionally or unintentionally, let them know this place, but I haven't seen you. Koichi's words are obvious. She means that Zhang Yang is not the person she picks. Otherwise, with the talent that Zhang Yang is showing now, Ji Yuyi would not have planned to cultivate Strange in the first place. This made Zhang Yang stunned all of a sudden. Looking at Ji Yuyi, Zhang Yang didn't know how to speak. Could it be that he was the Kamar Taj who came directly on a cross-flight? It seems, not very well. Zhang Yang was a little embarrassed, never expected that on the first day of the class of Ancient One, he encountered such an embarrassing problem. Well, take it easy, this question is not very important. Just when Zhang Yang hesitated how to explain to Ji Yuyi suddenly changed his seriousness and said kindly. This made Zhang Yang can't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. What a moody mage. What did you learn during your week at Kamar Taj? Skipping the question of how Zhang Yang came to Kamar Taj, Ji Yuyi looked at Zhang Yang and asked. Zhang Yang frowned, and thought seriously. Fear magic, sharp weapon magic, melee combat and portals, about these. Ji Yu nodded, said, and took out a magic book from behind him, read this book to the end. Zhang Yang took the magic book and couldn't help but ask, what is this? Ji Yuyi. Most of the basics of magic are recorded in this book, and when you finish reading it, you can roughly master the basic magic. Zhang Yang nodded and put the book aside. At this moment, Ji Yuyi stood up, and she asked Zhang Yang, "What is your opinion on magic?" "Opinion? Perhaps. Magic itself is an energy of its own," Zhang Yang said with a smile. These words made Ji Yuyi couldn't help but look back at Zhang Yang, and also showed a smile. "It seems that you are very confident in yourself." Zhang Yang shrugged his shoulders and turned to Ji Yuyi. "I remember you told me before, you have to believe in yourself." Ji Yuyi was relieved. "Indeed." Saying that, Ji Yuyi raised his hand but waved it gently, and a square plane like a mirror was suspended in the air. With the light movement of Gu's hand, a crisp sound came from the air. Soon, the square mirror in front of Zhang Yang shattered, like a kaleidoscope. Magic is a law of nature. Follow nature, gain energy, and at the same time, release energy. Furuchi said, pointing to a broken piece of mirror floating in the air, just like this. Mirror space. Zhang Yang looked at the broken mirror and said. Ji Yuyi's heart was strange. "This kid robbed me of my lines. It seems that you know a lot." As soon as Ji Yu waved his hand, the shattered mirror disappeared into the air. "It's just a mirror, but it's true. You can also use magic energy to create a lot of mirrors to cast mirror space. However, the magic energy consumed by the mirror space is relatively large. It belongs to a kind of high-level magic. For the time being, you still have to learn. It is still a little reluctant." Ji Yuyi smiled and said, "In this lesson, I just want to tell you that the strength of magic lies in the strength of your own magical energy. And your own magical energy can be converted into any ability. This is called the secret law in Kamar Taj, a mysterious and powerful technique." Zhang Yang nodded. Only then did he realize that what gradually began to flow and become stronger in his body was the gathered magical energy. It's just that Zhang Yang feels that these magical energies don't seem to be the same kind. To be precise, there should be several. However, as for which ones there are, Zhang Yang is not clear. "Okay, you come with me," Furuchi said and walked towards the door. Zhang Yang followed closely behind Ji Yuyi. The two arrived at the fighting arena. At this time, Wang and Mordo both changed into fighting uniforms in the fighting arena. "Supreme Venerable." Seeing Ji Yuyi, Mordo and Wang both said to Ji Yuyi Sheng. Randomly, Mordo looked at Zhang Yang and said, "Come here, let's fight." "Fight again? I just fought Wang yesterday, and today I want to fight Mordo." Zhang Yang couldn't help but be stunned. "There are no restrictions today, you can use any magic, we will conduct actual combat training." Mordo looked at Zhang Yang and said seriously. The purpose of learning magic was originally to fight. If you learn magic but don't fight, that's not much different from not learning. Therefore, after becoming a full mage, most of Zhang Yang's courses will become practical classes. Of course, this is not known to Zhang Yang now. It's just that Zhang Yang is struggling with how to win Mordo. For Zhang Yang, who has only watched Avengers 3 inches, how much is the upper limit of Mordo's strength, Zhang Yang does not know. It was only through some conversations with some of Kamar Taj that Mordo was a master brother and a gifted mage. "I don't know if the magic I have learned now can beat Mordo." "Don't worry, you must gain experience in actual combat, which will speed up your cultivation," Ji Yuyi said to Zhang Yang. Saying that, Furuchi took out a small fan and said while fanning, "Use what I just taught you, try to use the magic energy in your body, transform it into the magic you want. As long as you think specifically enough, the spell will be displayed in your mind." In fact, Koichi is telling the truth. You know, Ji Yuyi's practice is also constantly improving in the cloud travel. Good. Zhang Yang nodded, walked to the middle of the fighting arena. At this time, Mordo was looking at Zhang Yang. After all, Zhang Yang was the one who almost defeated Wang yesterday. "Zhang Yang, your strength is not bad. But today you can use the secret method, you have to be careful. Master Brother's secret method is one of the best in Kamar Taj, and you will benefit a lot from fighting with him." Wang whispered in Zhang Yang's ear to remind Zhang Yang. Although the flamboyant savvy and talent are scary. But the problem was, he hadn't learned much magic. Wang felt that it was still necessary to remind Zhang Yang. After speaking, Wang stood by Ji Yuyi's side. "Ordinary actual combat. Don't worry, I will order until the end." As soon as Wang left, Mordo said solemnly to Zhang Yang. Although Mordo was prejudiced against Zhang Yang before. But in the end, Ji Yuyi recognized Zhang Yang. Now that Ji Yuyi is present again, in the matter of teaching apprentices, Mordo will not and does not dare to do anything. Listening to Mordo's words, Zhang Yang nodded and said to Mordo, then ask senior brother for advice. Mordo put his hands behind his back and nodded slowly, you can punch me now. Publicity. Punch you. Zhang Yang had never heard anyone make such an excessive request. There are even those who actively ask to be beaten. You don't have to be afraid, and you don't have to be soft. I will use magic energy to protect the body, and your punch is unlikely to hurt me. I just wanted to test your power. Mordo looked at Zhang Yang and said seriously. In fact, this is a pit in Mordo. If Zhang Yang punches over, Mordo will grab Zhang Yang's hand and then fall over the shoulder. This is definitely not Mordo playing a trick, but Mordo must let Zhang Yang know. In battle, no one will give you a chance to prepare. This is also the first lesson that Mordo wants to teach Zhang Yang. It's just that in the face of Mordo's request that Zhang Yang punch him, if he were to change to Wang, Zhang Yang might be able to fight Zheng straight. But it is Mordo, Zhang Yang always feels that there is fraud. Let's not mention that Mordo seems to be prejudiced against Zhang Yang. Let's say that Mordo looks at Zhang Yang's eyes, and Zhang Yang feels that he is deeply dissatisfied. Thinking about it this way, Zhang Yang felt that it was better to be careful. After all, how to show Mordo's strength is not clear, and this fight can also use magic. What if Mordo gives himself a yin wave? Thinking of this, Zhang Yang took out the coin that the king had given him before from his pocket. This action blinded Mordo and the king. What is this for? Just when everyone didn't understand what Zhang Yang meant, I saw Zhang Yang suddenly flick the coin in his hand at Mordo. The coin flew towards Mordo like a launching rocket at the speed of tearing through the air. Mordo's face changed, and he hurriedly used energy to protect his body. But as soon as the energy was turned on, the coin smashed on Mordo's chest. Burst. Groove. Forcefully dropping the coin thrown by Zhang Yang, Mordo almost didn't hold back the swear words, and at the same time swallowed back the blood that almost spit out of his mouth. This is a coin. I'm afraid it's not a jack. Zhang Yang, this blow carries magical energy and its own power. Punch a small pound-sized coin into Mordo's body like a jack. If it weren't for the fact that Mordo turned on the 3-layer energy shield at the last second. I'm afraid this coin can directly pierce Mordo's chest. Am I special? No. Is the power of ostentatious so perverted? This is really the power of a normal person. No, no, no. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that he didn't say anything before he attacked. At the moment, because of the pain, Mordo blushed, his eyes as big as a bullfight, and bloodshot. This look, coupled with the magical energy on the coin just now, Wang and Ji Yuyi didn't need to think about how uncomfortable Mordo was now. It looks like it hurts. Wang whispered to Ji Yuyi, who was standing on the side, and shook his head. Now Wang's hands can't help but tremble a little. He can simply understand Mordo's mood too well, and can't help but say, actually, just get used to it. I think it should hurt when I look at it. Furuichi on the side also echoed nonchalantly, without any expression on his face. Just shook his head along with Wang. I couldn't help but sigh in my heart, what a crime. I have to ask others to beat you to try your strength. Now, the pain is comfortable. Why didn't you say it? After a while, Mordo only eased up before looking at Zhang Yang, and forcibly endured the pain in his chest and scolded Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang touched his head a little embarrassed. Senior brother, isn't it actual combat training? How can the enemy give you time to prepare in a real battle? Mordo felt that he was not killed by Zhang Yang, but there was a high possibility that he would be killed by Zhang Yang. This guy actually robbed his words. This is obviously what he wants to say to Zhang Yang. No, in the end you are a master brother and I am a master brother. Do I teach you or do you teach me? Otherwise, senior brother will give you a treat. Am I special? Endure. Mordo took a deep breath, his face was livid and waiting for Zhang Yang, and he couldn't help but comfort himself in his heart. Ji Yuyi is still here. Ease the emotions in the good heart, as well as the pain in the body. Mordo will be serious. He must teach this junior brother a good lesson. This junior brother is simply infuriating. Don't blame senior brother for my ruthlessness. Mordo thought to himself. Mordo took out a stick from behind him and said horizontally in front of Zhang Yang's eyes, This thing is called a magic weapon, and some magic is too difficult to control, so we inject those magic into the items so that we can better control those magic. Mordo said as he put his other hand on the stick and pulled it to the sides. I saw that the stick was pulled apart for 7 or 8 knots. There is a red magical energy connected in the middle. Mordo said and threw the stick to the ground. The stick immediately made a popping sound and turned into a long whip, as if it was shouting with Zhang Yang. This is the stick that the Court of Life left on Earth, Mordo said to Zhang Yang, and when the words fell, Mordo raised his leg and kicked the shoes on his feet. The shoe flashed a small yellow magic array in the air. Then it quickly disappeared. This is Varte's jumping boot, Mordo introduced. Of course, some magic weapons are also difficult to control, and sometimes, it is not you who chooses the magic weapon, but the magic weapon chooses you. You can try to use the fetch magic, those that choose your spell and it will find you on its own, Mordo said, looking Zhang Yang up and down. Zhang Yang was stunned. Fetch magic. This trick seems to have not been learned yet. As if thinking of this, Wang hurriedly said to Zhang Yang, look good, like this, imagine the item you want, the more careful the better, or, feel the energy of a certain object, try to use your own energy to attract it, and then, use your hand to cast the object magic like a teleportation magic. If an object resonates with the energy in your body, then you can take it. In fact, this magic is similar to a portal, and if you think about it, the spell is in your head, just like this. Wang said, drew a small circle in the air, and then reached in and took out a long sword. Oh, Wang, don't you think that if you teach him now, he will be able to do it? Mordo couldn't help frowning when he looked at Wang. This is going to be a fight, and you still come with me to learn magic on the spot. Could it be that I have to wait for you to learn to fight you again? Mordo looked at Zhang Yang on the opposite side and shrugged his shoulders. Don't you forget, battles never give people time to prepare. If you don't have a magic weapon, you can use your magic energy as a magic weapon. Can't you cast more than 300 sharp weapons? I think it should be enough, Mordo said, raised the stick in his hand, and made a gesture of battle. As soon as Mordo's words fell, he saw Zhang Yang suddenly close his eyes, and then raised his hand. He was actually casting a fetching magic. This made Mordo stunned. Deceptive, right? Zhang Yang learns things so quickly. Learning now, Modu was thinking in his heart, not wanting Zhang Yang to really draw an object retrieval array in the air. If it weren't for Mordo's own eyes, he would learn and teach. Mordo really had some doubts about Zhang Yang's understanding before. But now, Mordo felt. It seems that he should not doubt the ostentatious understanding. Because of this enlightenment, it's so good. Although Zhang Yang had just learned, he was still a little slow to cast, but in the end, Zhang Yang had just learned this object-taking magic for less than 10 minutes. It's really amazing. Mordo couldn't help but feel a little emotion in his heart. The king on the side was already accustomed to the appearance. You know, fetching magic is basic magic, and it is much the same as the casting of portals. With a flamboyant understanding, enlightenment should be fast. Magic is very similar to martial arts. Most of the similar magic is similar. As long as you understand the same, then other similar magic, it is not difficult to understand at all. Thinking of this, Wang couldn't help but whisper to Ji Yuyi with some pride, Supreme Venerable, look, isn't Zhang Yang very smart? Ji Yuyi shook his fan, and his face did not show much waves. It's good that the talent is good, but it's not amazing. Wang was a little embarrassed. He didn't speak again, just continued to look at Zhang Yang. At this moment, Zhang Yang continued to perform the magic of taking objects. Although the time to take this object is a little slow, it is the first time to use it, which is within the normal range. Now, everyone's focus is not on anything else, but on what magic weapon Zhang Yang can get. Just as everyone was thinking. Suddenly, I saw Zhang Yang's eyes open, and soon, Zhang Yang put his hand in, and then took out 2 items. After taking it, Zhang Yang waved his hand and the magic disappeared. Zhang Yang looked at the things in his hand and said to Mordu, Senior brother, it's okay, let's come to the actual combat training. Mordo, Wang, Koichi, if the 3 are not mistaken. The 2 things Zhang Yang is holding in his hand should be Odin's Eternal Spear and the Cosmic Cube, right? This unlucky kid can't get by with Asgard, right? No way, I'll have a real training with you. Are you so serious? Mordo was depressed. He never thought of letting Zhang Yang take 2 magic weapons. Zhang Yang actually directly took the Eternal Spear and the Cosmic Cube. It's too much, it's too much. This, looking at the Eternal Spear in Zhang Yang's hand and the Cosmic Cube in his hand, Ji Yuyi was a little stunned. You apprentices as you are, it's too straight. Stunned for a few seconds, Ji Yuyi couldn't help but say to Wang. Wang is also very speechless at the moment. No, Zhang Yang, you kid is really. Master brother, doesn't he want face? Let you take the magic weapon, you can take 2 pieces at will. Isn't it just a training session? How about you, got the Eternal Spear and the Cosmic Cube? Aren't you going to give senior brother a little victory? Wang was a little anxious, and looked at Mordo awkwardly. At this time, Mordo's face was sluggish, and his wide eyes revealed a trace of tragedy and doubt. Mordo couldn't figure it out. These 2 things in Zhang Yang's hands are Odin's. This means that Zhang Yang's object extraction magic just now used Asgard. Fetching objects in a different dimension. No, how exactly did Zhang Yang know to break the Asgard enchantment? Senior brother, what's wrong with you? Looking at the sluggish Mordo, Zhang Yang couldn't help asking. This sound pulled Mordo's thoughts back. Mordo couldn't help but answer. Obviously Mordo's soul had not been pulled back by Zhang Yang. Senior brother, I'm ready, I can fight. Zhang Yang raised the Eternal Spear in his hand and said. That golden gun of eternity glittered in the sunlight. Mordo, Koichi, Wang, what the hell, you were ready. I'm not ready. Mordo was heartbroken. Yes, the stick in Mordo's hand is a good scepter of the Court of Life. Sounds awesome. Who is the Court of Life? O God of Judgment, who is omnipotent and all-knowing in the universe. One decision can affect the order of all universes. But the problem is that this scepter has always been sealed. It is now similar to ordinary magic weapons. And Kamar Taj has no one able to break the seal left by the Court of Life, not even Ji Yuyi. But the Eternal Spear in Zhang Yang's hand was open at a glance. That golden light, the majesty of the king emanating from that gun. Just by looking at it, I know that 100 Mordo can be killed. To know, Zhang Yang can take the eternal gun, which proves that Zhang Yang can use it. What's even more outrageous is that Zhang Yang took an eternal spear, and he still holds the cosmic cube in his hand. Even if Zhang Yang didn't learn much magic now, he might not be able to use these 2 things to the fullest. But the problem is that hitting Mordo can be said to be more than enough. This Nima, hit the hammer, hit it. Mordo was caught in the head by the door to fight with Zhang Yang at this time. Looking at Zhang Yang's confident look, Mordo's face was black and livid. Mordo always felt that flaunting him might be intentional. No, be confident, remove the possibility. Flaunting him is on purpose. At this point, Mordo fell into a difficult decision. Hit it, you can't beat it. Don't fight, everything has been said. For a while, Modu looked at Ji Yuyi in embarrassment. Mordo knew that at this time, if Ji Yuyi could say something, he might be able to turn the entire battle around. However, Mordo waited for a long time, but Ji Yuyi was still leisurely shaking his fan, as if nothing had happened. For a while, Mordo was stunned. Could it be that Ji Yuyi didn't react? After a while, Mordo finally couldn't help but open his mouth to Ji Yuyi, Master. Ji Yuyi reacted a little and answered leisurely. Junior brother took things and accidentally took away the holy relics of Asgard. For the sake of the friendly relationship between Kamar Taj and Asgard, should these 2 things be recycled and returned to Asgard, Master? Since Ji Yuyi was so unconscious, Mordo thought that he could only take the initiative to speak. No, Zhang Yang opened such a big hanging, Master, do you really care? Mordo found a reason to think it was seamless. You know, Kamar Taj and Asgard have always coexisted peacefully with well water and river water. But if Zhang Yang took Odin's things from Asgard, Odin would inevitably be angry. From the point of view of the peaceful coexistence of Asgard and Kamar Taj, Ji Yuyi should confiscate these 2 things from Zhang Yang and return them to Odin, and he should also punish Zhang Yang heavily. Therefore, Mordo believes that for this reason, Ji Yu must have received the Eternal Spear and the Cosmic Cube. In this way, the odds of winning with Zhang Yang's actual combat training are much greater. It's better to collect it now. Collect it now. Mordo looked at Ji Yuyi, his face full of sincerity and pleading. He looked at Ji Yuyi with a light in his eyes, as if he was waiting for a holy decree. Makes sense. As if feeling Mordo's ardent desire, Ji nodded a little, and said nonchalantly, Zhongyang, let you go to get the magic weapon, but you take the things of the God King, it is indeed a bit excessive. Ji Yuyi's words made Mordo's eyes light up. He looked at Ji Yuyi with his eyes open, eagerly waiting for Ji Yuyi to announce that Zhongyang would hand over the things in his hand. However, what Mordo never expected was, suddenly, Ji Yuyi's words turned sharply, as if he was a little helpless to Zhongyang, and continued, however, you took it all, which also proves that the Eternal Spear and the Cosmic Cube recognize you, so you can use it for the time being. Wang, Mordo, Master, sometimes, I think you might as well not speak. What does it mean to use first? Can this get him to use first? How do I fight him with these two things? No, Ji Yuyi, you are poisonous, right? Originally, Mordo said this to let Ji Yuyi help him solve the siege. Never expected that Ji Yuyi would let Zhongyang use it first. Mordo was completely stunned. He stood in place for a while, not knowing whether to listen to Ji Yuyi's words and fight Zhongyang or not. He always felt that Ji Yuyi should understand the meaning of his words, but, Ji Yu 180% may pit him. Master, yes, Supreme Venerable, Senior Brother, I asked. Mordo still wanted to struggle, but the opening interrupted Mordo's words. Mordo saw that Zhongyang first saluted Ji Yuyi, and then looked at himself and made a gesture of battle. That confident look made it difficult for Mordo to admit defeat. Please, teaching is not a problem, Mordo said to Zhongyang with difficulty, and hesitantly raised the stick in his hand. For a moment, Mordo wanted to knock himself out with the stick in his hand. Modu reluctantly tugged at the corners of his mouth, looked at Zhongyang and said, Junior brother, promise me. 10 million points or over. Simply put, tap and punch. Asgard. Lord, you seem to have something on your mind. Frigga looked at Odin, who was looking at the distant knight on the balcony with a melancholy face, and said, with a hint of worry in her expression. Hey. With a light sigh, Odin shook his head and turned to look at Frigga. It's getting closer and closer to Ragnarok. But Thor is not currently qualified to become a monarch, how can I rest assured? From very early on, Odin was grooming his son Thor to become a qualified monarch. Of course, it's not that you haven't thought about raising Loki. It's just that, Loki is too heavy-minded, and such a character is destined to become a tyrant. For the sake of the people of Asgard, Odin put all his thoughts on Thor. It's just a pity. Hey. Thinking of this, Odin couldn't help sighing. It's okay not to mention Sol. As soon as Sol is mentioned, Odin can't figure it out. He is a god king who conquers the 9 domains and shocks all directions. How did you give birth to such a 205 son as Thor? Gas. Oh, king, don't worry, it's still a long time before Ragnarok, Thor we can teach slowly. Frigga comforted Odin. She lifted her hand and gently placed it on Odin's face. The moonlight was hazy on Odin and Frigga's bodies, and the atmosphere was a little ambiguous for a while. Frigga looked at Odin affectionately, and the beautiful night seemed to make a small throbbing in the hearts of the two. At this moment, Odin's eyes suddenly sharpened, frowned, and whispered, not good. When the words fell, Odin quickly turned his head to look, and saw a small yellow circle appear out of thin air, and then stretched out his hand from the small circle inside. Took Odin's eternal spear with a thunderous momentum. Odin, Zhongyang, you beast. Chapter 51. Kamar Taj's fetching magic. Odin didn't even have to guess to know who had the power and courage to take his eternal spear. In Kamar Taj. Indeed, only Zhongyang has this ability to make the eternal spear recognize Zhongyang's master. Odin can't figure it out now. Why can't this Zhongyang get by with him? Once or twice, that's it. This Nima, it's the third time. Thinking about Zhongyang's identity and the energy contained in his body before, Odin turned a blind eye and passed. But this bravado is simply deceitful. Yeah, do you think that I can't hold a gun? Learn a fetch magic and dare to steal his weapon? No, is Kamar Taj a mage or a thief? It's not the deadliest. What makes Odin most angry is that every time, as long as he gets a little closer to his wife, Zhongyang will make trouble. Before, the kiss was broadcast live. Get some sleep, and be sent by Zhongyang to smash the Hulk into the wall. Now it's hard to rest, looking at each other affectionately, the atmosphere is up, and before he can start, he stole his gun. Isn't it easy for him to be a god king? 9 domains, big and small, to manage. 2 stupid sons must also take care of it. It's hard to stop, and I'll be close to my wife, and I'll be disturbed by your bragging. As a god king, I have been trembling for a lifetime. Can't I just relax? Zhang Yang's current behavior is simply outrageous. Think of him, Odin, a god king, who doesn't want face. Odin is angry. Fortunately, he is a god king and has divine power to protect his body. Otherwise, with Odin's age and blood pressure, he would have to be paralyzed by Zhang Yang. Oh my god, king, your eternal gun. Frigga seemed to react, shouting with some surprise. Odin was depressed. I know. I'm just getting older, but I'm not blind. Who is so bold, actually came to Asgard to steal? Frigga couldn't help but say. Who else could it be? Odin scolded in dissatisfaction. As soon as the words fell, suddenly a large number of guards with long guns rushed directly in. Upon seeing Odin, the general at the head exclaimed, King, it's not good. The cosmic cube was stolen. Odin, the subordinate, only saw a hand appear out of thin air, and then the cosmic cube was taken away by that hand. Odin, excessively, it's too much. Are you toxic? You didn't take the eternal spear enough to take the cosmic cube. Or do you want to take me away? Odin took a deep breath. A mouthful of old blood stuck in the chest almost didn't spew out. No more. This is simply deceitful. Odin felt the need for him to go to Kamar Taj again. Just thinking about it, I saw Hill suddenly rush in. As soon as she entered the door, Sif couldn't even care about etiquette, and said to Odin, King, it's not good. After Thor knew that the cosmic cube had been stolen, he now has to go to Kamar Taj alone. Sif is a member of the 4 warriors of the Asgard Palace and a female warrior of Asgard, who grew up with Thor and has always regarded Hill as his own child in Odin's eyes. So Sif was so rude, and Odin didn't mind. However, hearing Sif say that Thor was going to Kamar Taj, Odin couldn't help frowning. Fool. Kamar Taj, that place, Ancient One can still be there. How capable is he, Saul, like going to Kamar Taj to shout? Even if Odin is not afraid of Ji, the problem is that Kamar Taj still has a Vishan Emperor behind him. That's an ancient god. He's a stupid son. When it came to Thor's affairs, Odin was anxious. He looked at Sif, and seemed to be ready to say something, and at this moment, Odin suddenly calmed down. In fact, Sol's trip to Kamar Taj doesn't seem to be a bad thing. Thor's unlucky child, always impulsive and brainless and arrogant, Odin knows that if Ragnarok comes, he will be at the limit. In fact, whether the eternal spear is present or not is not Odin's main concern. Odin's concern is whether Thor can take on a big role in the future. Anyway, Ji, that old immortal guy, is a cultivator. Perhaps, after Saul went to Kamar Taj and hit the wall, he could really be trained by Ji's character. Thor is his son, and even if he causes trouble at Kamar Taj, Furuchi does not dare to do anything to him. After all, it was Kamar Taj who moved first. By the way, it can also let Ji see the power of their Asgard army. Although Thor has an immature personality, he is still very capable. If Ji doesn't hit them, the mage of Kamar Taj is still a dozen accurate. Thinking of this, Odin took a deep breath and finally let go of the anger in his heart. Odin waved his robe calmly and said heavily, Okay, since that's the case, let Thor lead troops to Kamar Taj. Remember to bring the eternal spear back for me as well. Isn't it? Kamar Taj is so rampant. Even the eternal gun was stolen. The eternal spear is confessionist. What is going on here? Sif thought to himself, but did not dare to ask directly, but just said to Odin with a difficult face, Back to the king, Thor, he has already gone. Odin is angry, this stupid son, so bad to bring some people. Go to the bridge Hongqiao and take a look. Kamar Taj, fighting arena. Mordo looked at Zhang Yang, and the hand holding the wooden stick was full of sweat. That golden eternal spear looked so dazzling. You know, it is said that Odin's eternal spear is quite simple and powerful. It is said that as soon as you throw it, you will definitely hit the target. It's a magic gun that shoots 100 shots. Can penetrate anything it hits. Get something straight. It's a breakdown. Thinking about it like this, Mordo was really scared into a cold sweat. But since Ji spoke, he could only fight. It is estimated that Zhang Yang does not know the use of the eternal spear yet. Since you can't harden steel, you can only win by speed. In the end, there are still restrictions on the magic of openness. Mordo thought to himself, and directly pulled the wooden stick into a long whip and swung it at Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang used the eternal spear to block the damage of the long whip. Soon, Mordo jumped into the air using Vardo's jumping boots. Because of the blessing of Vardo's jumping boots, Mordo's speed is fast. Almost before Zhang Yang could react, Mordo jumped directly behind Zhang Yang. Without the slightest mercy, Mordo put the long whip into a stick and smashed it down on Zhang Yang's back. However, at this moment, I saw a blue light up. Mordo's stick hid and disappeared in an instant. Mordo waved the wooden stick and said that the heart was not good. He actually forgot that Zhang Yang still had the cosmic cube in his hand. You know, it will take a little time for Kamar Taj's portal to open, but the speed of opening the teleportation of the cosmic cube is very fast. It opens almost in the blink of an eye. This is why Zhang Yang disappeared so quickly. But at the same time, because he was not skilled in this powerful force, Zhang Yang appeared quickly. It was so fast that Mordo lost his mind, and when he saw Zhang Yang again, Zhang Yang was already standing next to Wang. Oops, Mordo shouted in his heart. You know, Modu's only victory now is to fight Zhang Yang in close combat. The eternal gun is too long after all. If the melee is around, Zhang Yang will not be able to attack Mordo. That's why Mordo will strike first and use speed to go around. But the problem is that now Zhang Yang obviously understands this problem and uses the power of the cosmic cube to open the distance. And, look at the eternal spear raised by Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang should not be thinking, throw it over. This will, Mordo was stunned. Junior brother, let's talk about it. Don't take it so seriously, everyone. Mordo was shocked in his heart, looking at Zhang Yang's action scared out of a cold sweat, which scared his legs almost unable to move. I was thinking about whether to surrender or simply surrender. After all, the eternal spear is a terrible thing. At this moment, I suddenly saw a loud sound like thunder. A colorful light shot straight down from the sky. That colorful light is not only fast, but also very domineering. Falling from the sky and connecting to the ground, instantly shot through the entire ground of Kamar Taj. It is as if anyone or thing that encounters this colorful light will be annihilated. It really shocked everyone in the fighting arena, including Zhang Yang. Only Ji Yuyi was still calm, and there was not much wave on his face. Just raise your hand to cast a mirror space, blocking the power of the colorful light. It was also at the same time that Ji Yuyi cast the mirror space. Furuchi seemed to see a golden light flash with his afterlight, and that speed was fast. It was almost until Furuchi disappeared before he could react. As the golden light disappeared, there seemed to be another loud noise, and the energy was colliding. As for what that loud noise was, Ji Yuyi was not clear. Only, after the rainbow bridge closes, Ji Yuyi waved his hand, and the mirror space disappeared. A large hole appeared on the ground of the fighting arena, which was the trace left by the Zhongyang rainbow bridge. Then, next to the big pit, a blond man lay face to the ground. The eternal spear stands behind the man with a hammer in it. More precisely, standing on a man's ass. After the ancient ones approached, they saw that the hammer inserted in the eternal spear shattered completely, turned into a pile of scrap iron and fell to the ground. All that remained was the tip of the eternal spear stuck into the man's ass. Wang, Master, I think I seem to have seen this man during the Great War in New York, as if he said before that he was Odin's son, called Thor. Ancient One, be confident, he is. Mordo, Master, can he still ask for his ass? Ji Yuyi, it should be okay to rescue it. For some reason, this scene always reminds of an ancient saying in the East, Jing Kei's assassination of the King of Qin. Wang, Ji Yuyi, and Mordo all looked at Zhang Yang in unison. Zhang Yang, I'm going to say that I was just frightened by the sudden appearance of the Rainbow Bridge and accidentally threw it out, believe it or not. Asgard Rainbow Bridge. Odin stood beside Heimdall, majestic and domineering. Has Thor arrived safely at Kamar Taj? Seeing Heimdall close the Rainbow Bridge, Odin couldn't help but ask. Sif on the side stepped forward, her face tense as if she was concerned about this issue. Yes, Heimdall responded, his golden eagle-like eyes looking sharply into the distance. Have eyes that can perceive everything. Heimdall's attention at the moment is on Kamar Taj. How? Hearing Heimdall's affirmation, Odin quickly asked. There was a hint of arrogance in his tone. Although Thor's impulsive personality does not bring an Asgard soldier, with Thor's power of Thor, Odin believes that he should be able to shock Kamar Taj at this moment. A Mjolnir goes down. If you don't go to Kamar Taj to destroy everything, you will have to destroy at least a training ground. Regardless of whether Thor can bring back the cosmic cube and the eternal gun, in short, it is also excellent to establish some prestige in Kamar Taj. Otherwise, this Kamar Taj is always looking for trouble. Odin thought to himself. However, the reality does not seem to be the same. God King, God of Thor, he has been defeated. Heimdall said regretfully. Odin, Sif, what's the thing? Defeated, isn't he just arriving in Kamatiki so soon? Odin, didn't Thor use his hammer? Heimdall, Mjolnir was destroyed. Odin, did he do it? Heimdall, no, I was shot by the eternal gun in the Rainbow Bridge, and now I faint. And, Heimdall said with some hesitation, Thor's seems to have been shot through by the eternal spear. Odin, it's you again, flamboyant. You fool, you wait for me. Kamar Taj, in the room. Mordo, Wong, and Zhang Yang stood in a row, looking at Saul, who was lying unconscious on the bed, and couldn't help but shake his head. This time, Ji Yuyi is helping him treat, using some Chinese herbal medicine. Fortunately, Mjolnir helped him block the power of the eternal spear, and the injury was not very serious, but the power of Mjolnir when it exploded may have stunned him, and it is estimated that he will wake up tomorrow. After examining Thor's injuries, Furuchi said calmly. Get up and wash your hands. Fortunately, it's an ass, if it's inserted in front. Wong shook his head and sighed with some fear. Looking at Saul, who was lying unconscious on the bed, Mordu's forehead couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. God, fortunately, this shot was not shot in his ass. Even Thor's Mjolnir can be blasted by the eternal gun, but imagine that if this shot is shot at him, isn't he gone? This bravado is simply terrible. Is he the devil becomes? It's only been a few days since I learned magic. How many days to come to Kamar Taj? Can actually control Odin's eternal spear. Oh, as soon as Mordo remembered his unhappy look towards Zhang Yang before, Mordo felt that he was simply looking for death. No wonder Wong and Berkeley are so partial to Zhang Yang. This guy is a monster. Thinking of this, Mordo moved to the side a little and moved away from Zhang Yang. Now, Mordo really doesn't dare to provoke Zhang Yang anymore. Mordo wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and looked at Zhang Yang. At this time, I don't know whether Zhang Yang was intentional or unintentional, and his eyes also looked at him. Confirmed eyes, is a person who can't be provoked. Mordo quickly lowered his head. Mordo. At this moment, Ji Yuyi stopped Mordo. Mordo reacted from the panic, looked at Ji Yuyi and hurriedly saluted, Supreme Venerable. Take good care of Thor. Furuchi said and wiped his hands. Good, Mordo answered. Immediately, Ji Yuyi walked in front of Zhang Yang. She looked at Zhang Yang, but did not speak. This made Zhang Yang's heart tighten. Master, I really didn't mean to. To tell the truth, Zhang Yang really didn't mean to throw the eternal spear out. It's just that the Rainbow Bridge came too suddenly, so frightened that his hand shook, and he threw it out. How could he not expect that the power of the eternal spear was so great? Since you got the eternal spear and the cosmic cube, put it away well, and come to my temple later. Furuchi said. King, Mordo, publicity. Ji Yuyi means to let Zhang Yang take the eternal spear and the cosmic cube for himself. The magic weapon has always relied on its own ability. Looking at the shocked faces of the three, Furuchi said slowly, and then, shaking his small fan and leaving. This will be ostentatious and understood. The meaning in this is that what is stolen by skill, it is not returned. Ancient One is still Ancient One in the end. The Temple of the Ancient One. Ji Yu Yipan sat in front of the low chair, looked at the empty room, and said with a smile, God King, meet again. As the words fell, there was a bright light in the air, and Odin stepped into reality from nothingness, with anger on his body. It would be this result, Ji Yuyi thought long ago. So after hurriedly explaining a few words to Zhang Yang, Ji Yuyi came here to wait for Odin. He did not lead troops to attack, which was somewhat unexpected by Ji Yuyi. The God King looks a lot haggard. With a smile on his face, Furuchi continued to say to Odin. She got up, got off the couch, and went to the side to pour tea. Haggard, do you know I'm emaciated? It's not your apprentice who did the harm yet. You are happy now. Accepted Zhang Yang such a good apprentice, so he didn't put me Asgard in his eyes. I'm not dead yet. Odin took a deep breath, calmed his mood, and turned to Ji Yuyi. Ji Yuyi, I respect you as a supreme mage to give you face, but you don't seem to be able to manage your own disciple. See for yourself, what your apprentice did is called personnel. Just steal my gun, forget it, and poke my son's ass. Taking a step back, the more Odin thought about it, the more angry he became. I thought that Ji Yuyi, you were teaching your disciples magic after following Emperor Weishan, but I didn't expect that you were teaching your disciples to be thieves. Odin looked at Ji Yuyi and spoke a little heavier. Ji Yuyi was not angry, but just looked at Odin with a smile. You yourself are dying, you can't see the magic weapon, and blame the newly chosen master of the eternal gun. The God King is a little angry. It's better to drink a cup of chrysanthemum tea and extinguish the fire. Ji Yuyi poured good tea and handed it to Odin. It's okay not to look at this tea, take a look at this tea. Odin remembered Heimdall telling him that Thor had been stabbed in the eternal spear. Ow, a mouthful of old blood stuck in his throat almost didn't spew out. Ji Yuyi, you are old and immortal on purpose, aren't you? Odin was furious. If you don't give me today to bring back Asgard, tomorrow, I will step on your Kamar Taj. Ragnarok must be coming soon, and with Thor's current abilities, it seems difficult to defeat his sister Hela. And in terms of Thor's heart, wanting to be the king of Asgard seems far from qualified. Ignoring Odin's anger, Furuchi took out her small fan again, and said to Odin while fanning. The God King has been banishing Thor to the mortal world, why not let him stay in Kamar Taj to try? Ji Yuyi's words hit the nail on the head. A large part of the reason why Odin did not bring troops to attack this time is because of this. Odin wants Squeechy to temper Thor's nature. A long time ago, Odin had thought about it, but he couldn't pull it off. After all, Kamar Taj and Asgard had no contact. However, after this Zhang Yang came, there was more contact. Although, these connections made Odin quite angry. But people like Odin, who have already stepped into the soil with one foot, don't really pay much attention to these things. Right now, Odin's main concern is only Asgard's future. Ji Yuyi knew this very well. Talking is also a burst of blood. It's just that although Odin's mind was set by Ji Yuyi, the problem is that he can't promise Ji Yuyi so quickly, and the God King still has to have a row. Is it possible? Do you think my Asgard is worse than your Kamar Taj? Or do you think that my God King can't manage my son well? Ji Yuyi smiled. God King is in full swing, this kind of thing, Kamar Taj is willing to do it for you. Simple and clear words. Ji Yuyi gave Odin enough face. In the end, it was his apprentice who caused trouble first. Ji Yuyi is also a person who knows how to measure. Odin quickly looked for the bottom of the steps. Just as you said, I'll put Thor in your Kamar Taj for the time being. Two busy people, the conversation is always brief. Hit it off. Odin is too lazy to talk nonsense with Ji Yuyi. If you really want to do it, it is not very likely. Not to mention that there is a Weishan emperor behind Ji Yuyi. If all the energy in his body is developed, think that there is no benefit in having a vendetta with Kamar Taj. In the adult world, in the end, it is mainly about weighing the pros and cons. After Odin finished speaking, he planned to leave Kamar Taj, this place. He also doesn't want to stay for a second. Angry heart and liver pain. It's just that as soon as Odin turned around, he suddenly remembered something, and he looked at Ji Yuyi. What about the eternal spear and the cosmic cube? Ji Yuyi smiled. Thor's Mjolnir seems to have exploded, and the eternal spear and the cosmic cube left in Kamar Taj can always save his life. Odin. Ji Yuyi, you old traitorous and cunning bald monster. What can save Thor's life? And the eternal gun did not recognize Thor. Don't you just want to use it for Zhang Yang? Kamar Taj is really a nest of bandits. Excessively. It's too much. Odin was out of breath. If it weren't for the fact that his limit was approaching, hundreds of years earlier, he would have led his troops to wash Kamar Taj in blood. If only the sun was more angry. Obviously, my son is so much more handsome than Zhang Yang, why is he not half as smart as Zhang Yang? What a crime. Now that the Eternal Spear had chosen a new owner, Odin also knew in his heart that he was going to retire eventually. The future belongs to young people. It's just, why does he always feel very angry in his heart? With a wave of his hand, Odin angrily left Kamar Taj. Ji Yuyi smiled, watched Odin leave and couldn't help saluting, and said meaningfully, "Congratulations to the God King." Kamar Taj, dormitory. So you mean, you stole both of these things from Asgard? Look at the Eternal Spear and Cosmic Cube that Zhang Yang took back. Berkeley was dumbfounded. Berkeley was training in the afternoon. I don't want to see a lot of movement on this side of the fighting arena. Out of concern for Zhang Yang, he came to the dormitory to take a look, originally wanted to try his luck, to see if Zhang Yang was there, but he didn't expect that this luck was good. Upon entering the dormitory, Berkeley was stunned. Zhang Yang, this guy actually has Odin's Eternal Spear and Cosmic Rubik's Cube. Did I make a mistake? These two things are used by the God King Odin. Well, yes, however, the Supreme Venerable said, since I stole it by skill, let me keep it for myself. Zhang Yang explained. As soon as these words came out, Berkeley was immediately stunned. I was so shocked that my eyes almost dropped. Me? No way. Does this work too? The Eternal Spear and the Cosmic Cube as magic weapons. Zhang Yang's official mage's pressure is a bit high. For some reason, Berkeley always felt that he was holding a breath in his chest now. Eat one's heart out. Yes, naked jealousy. No, even if Zhang Yang has a high talent, even the magic weapon can get such a good one. No wonder everyone else says. People who have really worked hard will truly understand how important talent is. Hey, life. By the way, senior brother, can Kamar Taj make his own magic weapon? Just when Berkeley was helpless, the sudden bold words pulled his thinking back. Yes, what's wrong? Berkeley looked at Zhang Yang and asked puzzled. Is there any magic that can make a magic weapon? Zhang Yang asked again. Alchemy. Berkeley looked at Zhang Yang and couldn't help but say. Alchemy. Zhang Yang frowned. Yes, you have to learn alchemy to make magic weapons. Berkeley looked at Zhang Yang and said, what's wrong, why are you asking this? I want to make my own magic weapon, this eternal gun, it's too troublesome. When asked, Zhang Yang couldn't help but say. With 3 sighs, Zhang Yang shook his head, couldn't help but pick up the Eternal Spear, and carefully looked at the magic weapon in front of him that was a little taller than him. Zhang Yang remembered that Berkeley said that if he became a formal teacher, he would have to practice Kamar Taj. This thing is going to be carried on the streets of New York. Think about it, Zhang Yang feels that there is a high probability that he will be regarded as a neuropathy. And storage is also a problem, too long and not convenient at all. It's a real trouble. The Eternal Spear is a magic weapon that can be used occasionally, but it is still a different magic weapon in everyday life. Therefore, this made Zhang Yang can't help but derive the idea of making magic weapons. Moreover, once the magic weapon is manufactured, where to store it is also a troublesome problem. If only a storage bag could be made that could be taken with you at any time. Doraemon-like treasure bags, Zhang Yang thought to himself, putting away the eternal gun, the cosmic magic cube, and the magic book. Completely ignoring Burke's shocked gaze and loveless expression. Brothers, you sober up. This is the gun of eternity. Oh, magic weapon of God King Odin. You actually dislike it. Berkeley's are dumb. It is estimated that Odin would never have thought that this war gun that used to fight with him to scare off countless demons and monsters would one day be disliked. At this moment, Berkeley really wanted to cry without tears. I think he still has no magic weapon willing to follow him, so he can only use magic energy to make a magic weapon. But openly, with the eternal gun, I still want to make my own magic weapon. When it is really a drought death, a waterlogged death. Exasperating. Coming out of the dormitory, Zhang Yang originally planned to go to the library to see alchemy. Suddenly remembered that Ji Yuyi said to let himself go later. Zhang Yang decided to go to the temple first. Inside the ancient temple, Furuchi was sitting at the tea table with 2 cups of tea on the table. Supreme Venerable. Entering the temple, Zhang Yang first saluted Ji Yuyi Sheng. Seeing Zhang Yang, Ji Yuyi answered, took a sip of the tea he was sitting on. For some reason, Zhang Yang felt that Ji Yuyi's mood seemed to be very good, as if he was not angry because Zhang Yang ran into trouble. This makes Zhang Yang a little strange, but he is not really stupid enough to ask this question. Sit. Furuchi gestured to the location opposite her. Zhang Yang nodded and sat down. Do you know what that square object you got today is? After Zhang Yang sat down, Ji Yuyi looked at Zhang Yang and asked. Zhang Yang nodded. Cosmic Rubik's Cube. Yes. Ji Yuyi looked at Zhang Yang and explained. At the beginning of the origin of the universe founding God transformed 6 singularities with endless energy into 6 infinite rough stones, which respectively control the 6 basic attributes of space, time, reality, power, heart, and soul, and the cosmic cube you got today contains space rough stones. Zhang Yang looked at Ji Yuyi and listened carefully to the explanation. Ji Yuyi did not pause. The power of each rough stone is very strong. The power of the space rough stone is the power of space. If the user has all the power, he can travel through the multiverse, even the super universe, at will, and of course, he can also let anything, including the planets, travel through time and space. And you can also warp space and even time as you wish. Ji Yuyi was analyzing the power of the space gem with Zhang Yang. This made Zhang Yang couldn't help but flash a thought in his mind. That master, if you can master the power of space, can you create a storage space? Storage space. It's an interesting idea. Furuchi chuckled. It's possible. It's just that the power of the spatial rough stone is not so easy to master. Inside it, there is a complex and huge energy system. You can think of it as a combination of science and magic. Zhang Yang nodded and frowned, as if he was thinking about something. Furuchi continued, in fact, after so many years of studying spells, I have always believed that science and magic exist in commonality, and you can think of magic spells as a program or a formula. But of course, you need to use this to understand these formulas. Furuchi nodded his head with his hand. Looking at Zhang Yang, his brows furrowed and he did not speak. Ji Yuyi picked up the small fan she brought with her, and couldn't help but say, although you have a good understanding, but what you have realized before is some very basic magic, the universe-level space energy of the cosmic cube, it is normal for you to understand slowly. I saw you use the cosmic Rubik's cube today, although there are some accidents that you can use it, but your understanding of the cosmic Rubik's cube is too little, and rash use may hurt you. You have to think about it, only by using it reasonably, you will not be harmed, and play a greater use. You can slowly comprehend from Kamar Taj's teleportation magic. First learn to mirror space, and then study the cosmic Rubik's cube. The meaning of magic is to follow the law and thus use the law. Ji Yuyi explained carefully. As for the mirror space magic, Ji Yuyi had already taught Zhang Yang in the morning. In fact, that's also a force of space. It's just that Zhang Yang hasn't had time to think about it seriously. Supreme Venerable, maybe I have to go back and think about it first. Zhang Yang said seriously. Indeed, this kind of high-level magic is much more difficult than simple basic magic. Believe in yourself. Ji Yuyi looked at Zhang Yang and smiled, picked up a cup of tea on the table, and was about to drink it, as if he remembered something and said to Zhang Yang. Tea, chrysanthemum tea, clear heat and dissolve fire. Zhang Yang. No. For some reason, I saw this chrysanthemum tea. Zhang Yang remembered Thor's ass, and he didn't know if Thor woke up and found his ass. What a reaction it will be. Zhang Yang was thinking. At this moment, suddenly Kamar Taj sounded a furious voice. Ji Yuyi smiled lightly. It seems that he has woken up, let's go and see. What the hell have you done to me? You mortals of Kamar Taj. Ignorant barbarians. Late at night, pig-killing shouts came from Kamar Taj's guest hall. This anger woke up Mordo, who was sleeping in the cubicle. Hurriedly coming, Mordo saw that Thor seemed to be awake, lying on the bed, full of anger. You shouldn't move around so your wounds will open. Mordo hurriedly calmed Saul. Thor is Odin's son and has an extraordinary status. Kamar Taj could not afford to offend such an arrogant prince. It's just that Thor doesn't seem to appreciate it. Men like Thor who are used to fighting in the battlefield generally do not care much about injuries. Wearing a bandage can still continue to fight. The problem now, however, was that Thor could sense that this time he was injured in a particularly strange place. This made Thor not only unable to exert himself, but also felt that every time he moved, it hurt a lot. It was the kind of pain that made his muscles tense at the slightest movement. It's amazing, but it's only been one night before you wake up. Without waiting for Thor to speak, Mordo said again. In the end, it is an Asgardian person, and the physique is really speechless. With such a serious injury, it took less than a day to wake up after being in a coma, which is emotional. So you can explain it to me. Why is my wound on the ass? Thor glared angrily at Mordo, and although Thor couldn't move now, he could clearly feel the pain coming from the injured part. Thor really didn't understand. Why did his wound turn out to be on his butt? What exactly did he go through? Why did he wake up with his gun? You should probably be thankful that your wound is not in front. Mordo said with some embarrassment. Oh, I think I'll use my hammer to flatten this savage place of yours, roared Thor furiously. He stretched out his hand, as if he wanted to summon Mjolnir. However, after waiting for a long time, his hammer did not fly into his hand as usual. This made Thor stunned, and then yelled at Mordo, "What about my hammer? Shit, where did you put my hammer?" Here, feeling Thor's anger, Mordo helplessly pointed to the floor. At this moment, the original majestic hammer has turned into a pile of scrap iron and scattered on the ground. Only the handle of the hammer remains intact. How is that possible? Seeing a pile of scrap iron on the ground, Thor was shocked. He exclaimed, picked up the handle on the ground and looked at it, stunned. His hammer turned out to be broken. This made Thor a little confused. He clearly remembered that he knew that the cosmic cube had been stolen and asked Heimdall to check it out. After discovering that it was stolen by Kamar Taj's magic, he went to Kamar Taj alone. Seeing that he was about to arrive at the place while passing through the Rainbow Bridge, Thor wanted to shock the Kamar Taj people with Mjolnir first, so he threw the hammer out of the Rainbow Bridge. But after a while, he was surprised to find that his hammer actually flew back, and he also smashed it at Thor himself. Thor was ready to open more, not wanting to feel a tingling pain behind him just after turning around. His butt seemed to be struck by lightning, and then he was smashed to the ground by a hammer. Wait, be struck by lightning. Don't. Thor suddenly realized. It turned out that before he fell unconscious, he felt a strong thunder and lightning energy that Mjolnir exploded on his ass. No wonder now Thor feels that the wound on his butt is not only painful but also numb, as if he has been electrocuted. This herd of beasts. Are you awake? Just as Thor was angry, he only heard a gentle voice in his ear. Thor looked up and saw a bald woman walking towards him. The bald woman was followed by two people. Those two people, Thor will not forget when he dies. One is called Wong, the other is called Jong Yang. It was the two of them, who didn't know what strange abilities he used during the New York War, so that Thor ran down the street with a hammer and shouted, "I'm looking for my Queen Mother." Queen Mother. Thor is so afraid. And it was also filmed and posted online. Now Thor is simply the first person in the internet celebrity world. Nicknamed Brother Spirit Hammer. It's you too. It turns out that you are Kamar Taj people. Seeing Wong and Jong Yang, Thor is furious. It seems that you Kamar Taj really don't have a good thing. The last time the Battle of New York took the Hulk, this time, you steal the cosmic cube in my Asgard. Too much deception. Thor said, seemingly remembering. However, the wound behind him pulled the pain cells all over his body, making Thor tighten his buttocks, and tears almost didn't fall. If not for the fact that Mjolnir was destroyed, Thor will definitely use Mjolnir to hammer the heads of both of them. I think there should be some misunderstanding between us. Looked at the irascible Saul, Wong couldn't help but explain. However, before he finished speaking, he saw Ji Yuyi shake his head. This means to signal the king not to explain any more. Wong immediately shut up. Are you okay? Ignoring Thor's rage, Furuchi looked at Thor and asked, with a smile on his face. Well, oh, I really couldn't be better. Hearing Ji Yuyi's question, Thor almost gritted his teeth. Of course, if you were blown up someone, you can still say, I'm fine. Furuchi shrugged and said, that's a shame. Saul. You speak carefully. I haven't forgotten the mess you Kamar Taj did. The Battle of New York, and the Cosmic Cube. You barbarians really don't know the height of the sky, but I am the Prince of Asgard. My father is Odin, the God King. Thor lay in bed, unable to move because of his injuries. He can only vent the dissatisfaction in his heart by roaring. However, Furuchi did not pay attention to him and did not blame Thor for his rudeness. just stepped forward, as if wanting to lift Thor's quilt to check on his injuries. This made Thor angry, endured the pain and forcibly stopped. You can't do this. Who gave you permission to move my ass? Thor looked at Ji Yi with a hint of panic in his eyes. As the Prince of Asgard, he also wants face. Being looked at his old woman, how will he see people in the future? As if seeing through his thoughts, Mordo on the side said busily to Thor, this is nothing to be shy. Your injuries matter. Yesterday your injuries were healed by the Supreme Venerable, and Kamar Taj is a place of practice, there is no such thing as you imagined. Rumble. This sentence was like a thunder on the ground, which shocked Thor immediately. No, what? My ass, this bald woman helped me heal. Thor looked at Furuchi in disbelief, as if he wanted to confirm, you saw my country buttocks. Looking at Furuchi slowly nodded. Thor froze. His eyes slowly showed a trace of tragedy from the anger at the beginning, and his whole body seemed to be struck by lightning, frozen in place and motionless, and did not howl. On the contrary, Ji Yi did not have much waves on his face. I am the Supreme Mage, you can call me Ji Yi, your father, handed you over to me, and next, you will practice with us in Kamar Taj. Saul, Ji Yi, I'll help you treat it now, if you don't want to be unable to get out of bed and walk all the time. Saul, Ji Yi, okay, relax your ass. Saul, oh, my god, my country cocked buttocks. It was actually seen by an old woman. I don't know why, Zhang Yang, who was standing on the side, couldn't help but laugh a little when he saw this scene. Especially with Thor's unlovable expression. And the words of Ji Yi. Zhang Yang always felt, this style of painting is unexpectedly a little funny. In an extremely quiet and awkward atmosphere, Furuchi changed the medicine for Thor and used the healing spell before getting up and washing his hands in the wooden basin on the side. The day after tomorrow, you should be able to get out of bed and walk. While washing his hands, Ji Yu said to Thor. However, Thor had an unlovable expression on his face, and it seemed that he didn't want to take care of Ji Yu at all. Think of him as the Prince of Asgard. When was it so humiliating? Obviously he ran to Kamar Taj to settle the account. As a result, the account was not calculated, but he still made himself embarrassed. The hammer is gone, it is blown up. It's a shame. If there is a hole at the moment, Saul will have to hurry into it. By the way, your father said that you will stay in Kamar Taj, so for the time being, you can't go back to Asgard. Without waiting for Thor to speak, Furuchi continued. This sentence made Thor finally have a little reaction. What do you mean? His father left him here. How is this possible? Are you talking to me? How could my father leave me in a den of bandits? Thor looked at Ji Yi. His tone was not particularly good. And very rude. Of course, Thor was so rude from the beginning. Ji Yi was even a little used to this. To know, Thor and his father Odin were really similar in personality when they were young. For Odin's sake, Ji Yi did not calculate with Thor, but said to Zhang Yang on the side, Zhang Yang, you bring the eternal spear. Eternal gun. Hearing this name, Thor was stunned. As Odin's son, Thor will not fail to recognize what the eternal gun is. It was a weapon that accompanied his father in battle. It is a symbol of power, a representative of strength. Only, how could his father's eternal spear be here? Thor was a little unconvinced, and shifted his gaze to Zhang Yang. Listening to Ji Yuyi's words, Zhang Yang raised his hand, cast a retrieval magic, and took the eternal spear from the dormitory. The moment that golden eternal spear appeared, the expression on Thor's face was glazed. The suddenly enlarged pupils obviously had the words, incredible, written on them. His father's eternal spear not only really appeared in Kamar Taj, but was also held by such a young man who looked weak. What's going on here? This man is called Zhang Yang. How could he possibly hold the eternal spear? This weapon is confessed to the Lord. If he hadn't been recognized by the eternal gun, Zhang Yang should not even be able to lift the eternal gun. Thor was stunned for a moment. He didn't quite understand what was going on. Eternal gun, don't you know it if you don't go back? Furuchi looked at Thor and said with a smile. This sentence made Thor instantly dumbfounded. How could Thor not know the eternal gun? Could it be that my father really let me stay here? The moment he saw the eternal spear, Thor couldn't help but believe Ji Yuyi's words. Why did his father leave him here, though? This puzzled Thor. Your father wants you to become a qualified king, but obviously you don't have this ability now, and until you have this ability, you have to stay in Kamar Taj to practice, otherwise you will never be able to return to Asgard for the rest of your life. Furuchi looked at Thor with a somewhat serious expression. It turned out to be another ordeal. Thor originally thought that this matter was over after his father had thrown him to the mortal world to grind. And he can also be recognized by his father. Unexpectedly, his father did not fully recognize him. Thor frowned and looked at Ji Yuyi. You know my father. The God King is famous from afar, and he knows it. Ji Yuyi said lightly, his tone was neither humble nor arrogant. Thor also had some truth when he thought about it, and couldn't help but look at Ji Yuyi. Can you guarantee that everything you say is true? Listening to Thor's tone, he was already beginning to believe it. If you don't believe it, you can call Heimdall and see if the Rainbow Gate will open for you. Furuchi said with a smile. This made the unbelieving Thor glance at Ji Yuyi and began to shout, Heimdall. After shouting for more than 10 minutes, Thor was dumb in his throat and no one paid attention to him. On the side, Wong couldn't stand it for a while, took a cup of tea and handed it to Sol, and couldn't help yawning. Otherwise, you take a sip of tea first, and then call later. Thor frowned and looked down at the cup. Anger couldn't help but rush up. Chrysanthemum tea. Pick up the quilt and smash it towards the floor. The Supreme Venerable said that it has been hot recently, and it is easy to get hot, so I replaced Kamar Taj's tea with chrysanthemum tea. Wong looked at Thor and couldn't help but explain. Sol, this herd of beasts. You know now that I didn't lie to you. Looking at Sol's depressed and angry appearance, Ji Yuyi relaxed and fanned his small fan and said slowly. Then you will stay in Kamar Taj until you become a qualified king. Oh, by the way, his name is Zhang Yang, he is your senior brother, and he is also my current personal disciple. Future Supreme Mage. However, the last sentence, Ji Yuyi did not say it. It's just that Furuchi acquiesced in his heart. It is undeniable that the talent of Zhang Yang now is indeed the strongest she has ever seen. Even stronger than Doctor Strange. After Ji Yuyi finished speaking, Thor and Zhang Yang were very surprised on their faces. Publicity. So now that means Thor became my junior brother. Junior brother. No, I'm going to be big. It seems to accept the fact that he was abandoned by his own father in Kamar Taj. Thor didn't say anything more. It's just that after hearing Ji Yuyi say that he is a junior brother, Thor is upset. Although he didn't understand the difference between Kamar Taj's senior brother and brother, Thor was unhappy when he heard this brother. He's the prince of Asgard. In Asgard he was both older brothers. At Kamar Taj he has to be at least big. It's okay if you want me to stay at Kamar Taj, but I'm going to be the biggest. Thor raised his chin and couldn't help but say. You started later than Zhang Yang, and you should be a junior brother. Furuchi refused Thor's request. But I'm better than him. Thor said bluntly. In Asgard, the winner is king. Strength is king. After that, Thor also showed off his developed biceps. Mordo. King. Koichi. Not really. Sometimes, muscular ones tend to be simple-minded. To say that others are indeed not necessarily Thor's opponents. But Zhang Yang, he is a freak, a magical ghost, it's hard to say. According to the rules, you can only be a junior disciple. Moreover, you are the youngest disciple of the entire Kamar Taj at present. Ancient One. This made Thor dissatisfied. Looking up and down, Thor snorted coldly. Let him fight with me, whoever wins, should be big. Ji Yuyi smiled lightly again. Actual combat training is indeed a good proposal, but let's wait until you get better. As soon as the words fell, Ji Yuyi fanned her delicate little fan and left. Seeing this, Wong also followed. Zhang Yang originally wanted to leave, but when he left, he was stopped by Sol. Hey. Mortal, your name is Zhang Yang, right? Zhang Yang was stunned, looked at Thor and nodded, and couldn't help frowning. Mortal, what is this nobody's name? You fight with me, whoever wins, how about it? Thor lay on the bed and declared war on Zhang Yang. When he heard about the fight, Mordo on the side trembled. It seems to remember the fear of fighting with Zhang Yang before. Are you fighting with me? Zhang Yang looked at Thor and couldn't help asking. Yes. Thor raised his chin. At the mention of fighting, Thor was full of energy. Good. However, wait until you are well from your injury. Zhang Yang nodded, which was regarded as taking up the challenge. Okay, you kid is cheerful enough. Thor said. Maybe it was a little pain in pulling his butt. Thor couldn't help but cover his butt with his hand, and his face was in pain. Zhang Yang shrugged his shoulders, took the eternal spear and prepared to leave. Suddenly, as if remembering something, Thor asked Zhang Yang, "Hey, boy, do you know who got my ass?" This was asked by Saul. Zhang Yang suddenly looked embarrassed. It's just that Thor doesn't seem to notice this detail and just continues. Mjolnir can't suddenly explode, and in addition to the feeling of being blown up in my ass, I also felt a tingling pain. I guess it must be something that pierced Mjolnir and then into my ass, otherwise I would not have felt this way. Thor analyzed seriously. Although the analysis, discerning people can see it at a glance. But with Thor's brain, it is not easy to analyze to this point. Saying that, Thor couldn't help but look at him and said angrily, "To let me know who made my like this, I must kill him." Zhang Yang, do you think the tip of this eternal spear can poke into the hole in the wound on your butt? Saul, after Zhang Yang finished speaking, he took the eternal spear and left. Thor frowned, looked at Mordo on the side and asked, "What does he mean by that?" "I don't know." Mordo shook his head, his face light. "I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. I really am a guy with a simple mind and developed limbs." Thor waved his hand and said dissatisfiedly, "God is nagging. Just that flamboyant, you see that he is thin, as if he is malnourished. I estimate that if I punch down, he can cry for a long time." Mordo sighed and couldn't help but say, "Hey, in the end, you are still too young." Who is crying is really not certain. Thor looked at Mordo in confusion. Strange. Kamar Taj Library. Wong listened to Beyoncé's music while looking at the book. Suddenly, he felt someone enter, and when he looked up, he found that the person who came was Zhang Yang. "It's so late, are you coming to borrow a book?" Seeing Zhang Yang, Wong took off his headphones and asked. Just a few people came out with Solna. Mordo thought that Zhang Yang slept, but he didn't expect Zhang Yang to come to the library, which surprised Wong a little. Zhang Yang saluted Wong. At this moment, a mage came out of the library. "King, I borrow these." Zhang Yang raised his head. The mage in front of him was not strange, but he was not familiar either. If Zhang Yang remembers correctly, he seems to be called Cassius. "Take it." After examining Cassius's book, Wong said. The expression on his face was obviously much colder, and his tone was not particularly good. It seems that Wong dislikes him very much. Cassius nodded, picking up the book on the table as if ready to leave. At this moment, Wong suddenly said sharply to Cassius, "Cassius, I must remind you that there are some things that you cannot touch." This rebuke from the king made Cassius stop. He turned around, with a smile on his face, and saluted the king. "Okay, Archmage, I will remember your words." After speaking, Cassius looked at Zhang Yang and smiled. "Little junior brother, work hard." Then he left without looking back. Zhang Yang watched Cassius leave, and he didn't know why. He had a strange feeling in his heart. He always felt that there was a very uncomfortable feeling in this archmage named Cassius. "What book are you going to borrow?" Zhang Yang was thinking, and Wang's sudden words pulled Zhang Yang's thoughts back. "You don't need to look at him, you just need to learn magic now, you and him are not the same way." Zhang Yangmu replied and said to Wang, "Oh, by the way, Wang, I want to borrow books on alchemy." Alchemy. Wang Yi was stunned. "Why did you borrow this book?" Wang seemed a little surprised by the book that Zhang Yang wanted to borrow. "I want to make magic weapons, but senior brother Berkeley said that to make magic weapons, you must first learn alchemy." Zhang Yang said truthfully. "Magic crafting. Isn't your current magic weapon the eternal spear?" Wang was stunned again. "With such a powerful magic weapon, what other magic weapon do you make?" "Well, that thing is too troublesome. I think I need a new magic weapon to carry every day," Zhang Yang said. This surprised Wang a little. "Are you discussing the eternal gun? I wish Odin wouldn't be mad at you." Zhang Yang shrugged. "Inconvenient and can't be said." "Okay." Seeing Zhang Yang so persistent, Wang said to Zhang Yang, "However, I think that Berkeley guy should not have told you that few mages can learn the magic of alchemy, and in Kamar Taj, alchemy is a very unpopular magic. Few mages learn. No one learns." Zhang Yang was a little puzzled. Being able to create magic weapons by yourself sounds so powerful. How many mages have learned? That's a little strange. Zhang Yang couldn't help but ask, why? Wang Dao, because using alchemy will consume its own magical energy. Draining your own magical energy. It sounds like a bit of a hole in this magic. Zhang Yang was thinking about it, when he saw Wang get up and say to Zhang Yang, follow me. Saying that, Wang walked towards the library, followed by Zhang Yang. The two were walking in the library. Wang seemed to be looking for something. While searching, his mouth did not stop, and explained to Zhang Yang. Alchemy is a secret method handed down from the Middle Ages that combines chemical thought and magic. The main thing was to turn base metals into precious metals, that is, gold, but later, after research and derivation, combined with the use of magic, alchemy was greatly developed, and now the main use is to use it to make magic weapons. In essence, alchemy is not advanced and not difficult to learn, but the conditions for the use of this magic, the use of alchemy will consume the user's own magic, and if you want to make a good magic weapon, you also need the user to have the ability to control it to the extreme. Therefore, if your own magical energy is not powerful, you can't use alchemy at all. Wang explained. Alchemy is a spell that only true geniuses can learn. Those mages who rely on the power of other dimensions to fight do not even have the qualification to enter alchemy. If it weren't for the fact that the person who came to borrow the book was Zhang Yang, Wang would definitely not have been able to explain so much. Directly said, you can't learn, and sent away. So it is. Listening to Wang's explanation, Zhang Yang nodded. At this moment, Wang pulled out a dusty magic book from the innermost corner of the library, blew it, and said to Zhang Yang, have you thought about it? Ahem. Zhang Yang fanned the dust in the air with his hand, and looked at the three big words, alchemy, written on the somewhat worn magic book in Wang's hand and was stunned at first. Then he looked at Wang and asked, does the Supreme Venerable know this technique? Wang nodded and said, of course, there is nothing that the Supreme Mage will not do. Zhang Yang nodded, took the book and said to Wang, thank you, Wang. Although it sounds like the conditions for learning alchemy are quite harsh. But I have to admit that this magic is still very useful. After all, there is an old saying, poor equipment, half lose. For his own equipment, Zhang Yang had to learn this magic no matter what. Thinking about it, Zhang Yang left the library. On the second day, Zhang Yang, as usual, arrived at Kamar Taj's fighting arena early in the morning. This will be, Ji Yuyi is not there yet. Zhang Yang couldn't help but press his temple with his hand, and his head hurt a little. Last night, Zhang Yang went back to read the basic magic and read a few pages of magic books about alchemy, and by the way, he also thought about the spatial magic of the ancient sect. Although Zhang Yang had realized the magic of Berkeley and the Wang sect in one night. But those are basic magic after all. And there is only one kind of magic, so it is not difficult to think. But now I am exposed to so much magic at once. For the first time, Zhang Yang felt as if he had encountered a bottleneck, which gave him some headaches. Do you have a headache? At this moment, a familiar voice suddenly pulled Zhang Yang's thoughts back. Supreme Venerable. Seeing Ji Yuyi, Zhang Yang first saluted, and then said, it's a bit of a headache. Of course, you are too anxious and have too many things in your head, and you will naturally have a headache. Ji Yuyi smiled, piercing the nail on the head to see Zhang Yang's problem. Supreme Venerable, you all know. Hearing Ji Yuyi say this, Zhang Yang touched his head, a little embarrassed. Well, it's normal, you have only come to Kamar Taj not long ago. Like many mages, I can understand that you want to learn more things, but, one by one. Ji Yuyi took out a small fan and explained to Zhang Yang, there are many types of magic. Basic magic, elementary magic, intermediate magic, advanced magic, and unlimited magic. The difficulty is different, and the progress will definitely be different. Unlimited magic, what does that mean? The first few Zhang Yang can understand, but the meaning of this unlimited magic, Zhang Yang really does not understand. You can understand that you create your own magic. Furuchi explained simply. Create your own magic. Zhang Yang suddenly realized. It turns out that you can really create your own magic. What did you realize about the power of space that I told you yesterday? Ji Yuyi looked at Zhang Yang and couldn't help asking. Zhang Yang shook his head. It's not so, I always feel that there are some places where I can't figure it out, and I don't know if my head has become dull, or the magic energy in my body is insufficient. Ji Yuyi smiled. Then go to the temple and think without distraction. Ji Yuyi said and led Zhang Yang into the small temple next to the fighting arena. After entering the door, Furuchi lit a stick of sandalwood in the incense burner and nodded while saying, "The magic book is a good thing. It can take you to understand all the magic in the world, but at the same time it will also distract you, because there is so much magic in the world." As Ji Yuyi spoke, Zhang Yang was already sitting cross-legged on the ground, closed his eyes, and began to meditate. Seeing that Zhang Yang was meditating, Ji Yuyi slowly left the temple. "I thought I hadn't been to the training ground for a long time." Kamar Taj, training ground. After serving Soul's ancestor, Mordo can be described as a sore back. At the end of the day, almost all of Matage's big and small things were handed over to Wang to take care of for the time being. And as a master brother, Mordo never imagined that one day he would be assigned to take care of Thor's ass. Isn't this clearly the fault of Zhang Yang? What's the matter with him? The master has also become more and more partial recently. Mordo sighed. But there is no way, who makes other people's talents and understandings good. Finally, Soul's injuries healed a little, and Mordo had time to inspect Kamar Taj's training. Mordo took the lead to the training ground, and the situation of apprenticeships is what Kamar Taj attaches the most importance to. After all, there may be talented seedlings. Senior brother. Seeing Mordo, Cassius, who was teaching apprentices, hurriedly saluted and instructed the apprentices to practice freely. Mordo moved his neck and said nonchalantly to Cassius, "How are the apprentices doing lately?" "It seems okay, but it's much slower than the last few sessions. There don't seem to be a few good seedlings in this batch," Cassius reported truthfully. "I can't say that, Zhang Yang, Avery, these two are not bad." Upon hearing Cassius say that there were no good seedlings, Mordo hurriedly said, "Zhang Yang." Mordo didn't want to mention it. "That's a monster." As for this Avery, Mordo still has to mention it. That girl's talent is really good, and people are also working hard, and now she is basically the best trainee mage, and even Berkeley, the senior brother who has been here for a year longer, may not be able to beat Avery now. Except for the two of them, the other talents are generally biased, and the estimated magic seedlings have already believed in Dormammu. Cassius nodded and suddenly sighed. These words made Mordo frown. The originally somewhat tired face instantly became serious. "Why did you mention Dormammu?" Mordo asked, looking at Cassius. "You know, Dormammu is basically a forbidden word in Kamar Taj. Many mages avoided mentioning Dormammu. After all, it was an enemy that even Supreme Mage Ji Yuyi could not destroy." But Cassius suddenly mentioned that this made Mordo dissatisfied. "It's just that recently, Dormammu's believers have been rampant in New York, and their abilities are not bad, so I can't help but sigh." Cassius replied calmly. "It doesn't sound like there's anything really wrong. They gained the dark power of Dormammu and gave their souls as a price. They are all just a bunch of soulless puppets. Nothing to lament." Mordo looked at Cassius, and his tone became a little harsh. This made Cassius shut up immediately, as if intending to end the topic. You know, Mordo is a dead man, especially when it comes to Kamar Taj's avoidance. Preparing to change the subject. Suddenly, Cassius noticed that Furuchi was walking towards this side. "You seem to be discussing some interesting topics." When he got closer, Ji Yuyi couldn't help but say. There was no wave on the ancient side, but the tone was full of ridicule. As soon as the words fell, Furuchi set his gaze on Cassius, which was meaningful. "Supreme Venerable." Seeing Ji Yuyi, the two hurriedly saluted. "It seems that interesting topics did not make you happy." Ji Yuyi suddenly smiled. "Is His Holiness here to see the training of the apprentices?" Mordo was about to speak, when Cassius suddenly stepped forward and asked Furuchi. His movements were a little urgent. It seems that he wants to hide something. Ji Yuyi answered, his gaze never leaving Cassius. This made Cassius' gaze a little evasive. He always felt that Ji Yuyi's eyes seemed to be able to see through everything, but they couldn't see through anything. The apprentices have been fine lately, and the Supreme Venerable does not need to worry. Cassius said busily. "I'm not worried about apprentices," Furuchi said, putting his hands behind him and continuing, "I'm just worried that if the soul is taken away, then the shell has no meaning of existence." "Cassius, what do you think?" Ji Yuyi's words made Cassius couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat behind his back. A terrible thought came about by chance. Don't. What did Koichi discover? What the Supreme Venerable said is extremely true. Although flustered, on his face, Cassius remained calm, answering Ji Yuyi's words without the slightest confusion. Ji Yu nodded and looked at Mordu. Since you are patrolling, then I will leave it to you. As soon as the words fell, Furuichi turned and left. Congratulations to His Holiness the Supreme. Zhang Yang forgot how long he had been meditating, but when he opened his eyes, Ji Yuyi was still sitting opposite him. The only difference was that candles were lit in the ancient room. This made Zhang Yang a little unclear whether he had thought about it for too long. Master, how long have I been thinking about it? Zhang Yang was stunned and couldn't help asking. Soon, about 5 hours. Ji Yuyi said, and couldn't help but take a sip of the already cold tea on the table. My heart is full of emotion. She just asked Zhang Yang to think symbolically for a while, and if he didn't understand, he could still ask her. I never wanted to show that this straightforward guy actually sat here and thought about it for 5 hours. Ji Yuyi went to the training ground, and the spirit bodies all swam around the universe, and they also went to the immortal emperor for a cup of tea by the way. Zhang Yang finally had a little reaction. If Zhang Yang didn't react again, I was afraid that Ji Yuyi would not be able to help but wake up Zhang Yang. Realized something. After drinking the tea, Ji Yuyi asked Zhang Yang. A smile appeared on Zhang Yang's face. The method taught by the master is really useful, but I realized something. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.